And just like that, we are live for week 2 of the NFL season. How's it going, everybody? Good morning. We are just kicking off this live stream. There is a lot of storylines to get through on this live stream. A lot of very exciting games, a lot of injuries already stacking up in real football and fantasy football. A lot to get through today, but I want to start off. First, just talking through some guys that I really think you can't play today. They're saying George Kittle could play today. I'm not starting George Kittle unless I really have nothing else at tight end. You can see on the YouTube Live, I'm live on TikTok and YouTube per usual. You can see on the YouTube Live my top 10 rankings for every single position. You won't find George Kittle in my top 10 tight ends. And I did this intentionally. I think if he plays, he's probably like 11 or 12 in my tight end rankings. But guys, if he plays injured, he could score 0 points this week, just like most tight ends. We've been through this. This is a desolate wasteland of tight ends. Obviously, a healthy George Kittle, he's a top 5 tight end, probably top 4, maybe even top 3 tight end in fantasy football, but he's not fully healthy. So I'm pretty nervous about George Kittle. There's honestly a lot of guys. Someone's asking if I trust Deandre Swift. There's a lot of guys I don't trust pretty much at all today. Let me pull up the list here, and Deandre Swift is on this list. I think you can start Deandre Swift if you need to, but it's sort of similar to the George Kittle situation. I don't think Swift's seeing his normal amount of touches today. I'm expecting between maybe 10 to 15 touches for Deandre Swift. Those could be very high value touches for Deandre Swift. They could be targets and they could be touches around the goal line. That we did see Jamal Williams get 2 touchdowns last week. I don't feel great about Deandre Swift. There's also a lot of guys on this list that they're just outright not playing. Chris Godwin not playing today. They rushed him back a little too soon. It seemed like he's going to be out this week. Alvin Kamara, doubtful to play today. That's a huge blow if you have Alvin. So he needs to be out of your lineup. I'm not trusting Mark Ingram still. The corpse of Mark Ingram is not going anywhere near my lineups. Actually, I should probably add Mark Ingram into this list. I'm going to do that right now. But I do think that you can start Mark Ingram if you really need to, but I want nothing to do with Mark Ingram. I definitely want nothing to do with Tony Jones, who's going to be backing up Mark Ingram. I do really like Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry this week, though. I think those 3 guys are definitely all startable in fantasy. You can't start Julio Jones. He's questionable, true game time decision, but guys, we've been down this road with Julio. You're going dangerously close to a potential 0 points in your lineup if you're starting Julio Jones this week. I actually really like Russell Gage, who's expected to play. He was questionable too. The wide receivers for the Bucs, guys, basically not a single wide receiver practiced on Thursday. Chris Godwin's out. Mike Evans is going to play, it sounds like, but he was nursing an injury. Julio Jones sounds like he's the most injured of the group after Chris Godwin. I don't think he's playing today, but if he does, I don't think he's going to be playing much, and he could easily re-aggravate this hamstring injury that he has really bothered him for like 2 straight years now. I'm not playing Tony Pollard this week. I've taken a big L up to this point on Tony Pollard. He was one of my most drafted players, and I'm eating the L right now on Tony Pollard. The offensive line looked really bad for the Cowboys. And guys, Cooper Rush is starting at QB for the Cowboys today, making every single Cowboys player extremely risky, and it's why I like the Bengals defense in DFS a lot. They're the 3rd priced lowest defense this week. It's as if Dak is starting, but he's not. So definitely on DraftKings, I'm playing the Bengals defense in basically every single lineup. Guys, do not start Devin Duvernay this week. I can't believe how many Devin Duvernay questions I've been seeing. Don't start Devin Duvernay. He caught 2 touchdowns last week, but he barely had any targets. That was probably going to be the only game maybe in Devin Duvernay's entire career that he scores multiple touchdowns. There's no reason to expect Devin Duvernay to repeat this performance. He only had 4 targets last week. He only had a 14% target share. He only played about half the snaps. He only ran 18 routes. Don't play Devin Duvernay. Don't chase the 2 touchdowns from week 1 with Devin Duvernay, please. We do need a weather report for today, so I will look this up really quickly on the weather report. I was looking at it this morning as well. Let's take a look. Last week, I didn't expect week 1. I did not expect to need to be Weatherman Sam, and I did. I needed to do it, and honestly, we did adjust live on the air last week with the Bears 49ers game. Thank God we did, because that game was an absolute mess. And I'm actually very in on Trey Lance today. I think the heat for Trey Lance is honestly really shocking how down people are all of a sudden 1 week in a monsoon in horrible field. Trey Lance didn't look good in week 1, but he did run the ball 13 times. That is a very good sign for fantasy football. By the way, guys, we're live on YouTube and TikTok. Make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe and follow button. If you want a little bit more info, come to the YouTube Live. The YouTube Live, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position. You can see all my picks against the spread, everything on the YouTube Live. It's a little bit easier for you to see. So would appreciate if you're watching live on TikTok, come to the YouTube Live, smash the like button and the subscribe button. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Ray. Any T. Higgins news? It looks like T. Higgins is playing, and so he has to be in your starting lineups, I think, this week. But yeah, there hasn't been any, I don't think any news this morning about T. Higgins, but he does look like he's going to play, last I read, and I will go through the injury reports in about an hour again. But there's a lot of injuries this week, and it's tough to trust Deandre Swift, not because I don't like Deandre Swift. Guys, Deandre Swift is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL, but he's dealing with an injury. And the coaches have outright said he's not going to see his normal allotment of snaps. They're going to have to limit how much touches he gets. And that's a really concerning thing to hear in fantasy football. I don't think you need to bench Deandre Swift, but like if you have, say, an A.J. Dillon on the bench, I'm definitely playing A.J. Dillon over Deandre Swift. I have A.J. Dillon as my number 10 running back. I actually have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon both ranked in the top 10. One player you won't find in my top 10 running backs. Let me pull those up on the YouTube Live. Again, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position for this week on the YouTube Live. And one player you're not going to see in my top 10 on the YouTube Live is Naji Harris. I'm so panicked about Naji Harris. I traded Naji Harris actually in the one league that I drafted him. I traded him straight up for A.J. Dillon. Very aggressive move by Sam, but I have A.J. Dillon ranked 10 this week. I don't have Naji Harris in the top 10. Naji Harris re-injured his same foot that he already injured in the preseason. He has not shown any burst really since he entered the league. I don't think he has a single play over 20 yards. Maybe he has one play in his career. This is a guy that led the league in touches last year. Absolutely no big play ability. We're banking on Naji Harris getting massive volume. He only had 12 touches, 12 carries, I think, in week 1, maybe one target, one or two targets as well. But under 15 touches for Naji Harris in week 1. Offensive line looks really, really, really bad. I don't feel good about Naji Harris at all. I think you still start him. Like, you still have to start him. He's not on my do not start list this week because apparently he's fully healthy. He's not in the injury report. And he did lead the league in touches last year. So you have to start him. You spend a first-round pick on him. But I'm fully panicked about Naji Harris. Again, I did trade him away this week for just straight up for A.J. Dillon. And that was, again, a really aggressive move. But I feel okay about it heading into week 2. A.J. Dillon, by the way, number 9 running back in week 1. And the Packers only scored 7 points. Like, there's going to be much bigger games than that for A.J. Dillon where he scores multiple touchdowns. Same thing with Aaron Jones. I mean, both guys. I do have Aaron Jones ranked ahead of A.J. Dillon this week, by the way. And yeah, I would play Aaron Jones over Darrell Henderson for sure. I do really like Darrell Henderson this week too. And another guy we can probably add, if he's not already on there, to the you just absolutely cannot start list is Cam Akers. So of course he is on there. Yeah. The Cam Akers is dust, guys. We can't trust Cam Akers till we see some burst from Cam Akers, till we see him like do one good rep in pass block. Like he is not a guy you can trust. Definitely. I think Cam Akers is closer. He should be closer to the waiver wire than your starting lineup. That's how I view Cam Akers right now, at least. So definitely a lot of storylines. I am looking at the weather report right now. Weatherman Sam, putting on my weather hat really quickly. Doesn't look like any super concerning weather today. The 49ers looks like there could be some light rain in that game. Again, they play the Seahawks today. By the way, guys, I still can't wrap my head around how the Broncos lost to the Seahawks on Monday Night Football. And honestly, the spreads this week just make it even more clear how crazy of a win that was for the Seahawks. Seahawks are 9-point underdogs against the 49ers. Meanwhile, the Broncos, they are 10-point favorites this week against the Texans. Like, I mean, crazy differential between those two teams. The Broncos are so much better than the Seahawks still in my mind. But yeah, there's going to be some light rain in the 49ers Seahawks game, but only wind up to 13 miles an hour. Again, we don't really get concerned unless there's wind up to 25 miles an hour. And we're not going to see that in any games today. There is potentially some rain in the Colts Jaguars game as well. But again, no real wind. It doesn't look like heavy rain. Possible light rain for the 49ers, possible rain for the Jaguars. Every other game looks pretty good. We got 4 dome games: Lions, Washington, Saints, Bucks, Rams, Falcons, Raiders, Cardinals, all in the dome. It doesn't really look like any weather to be concerned about today. So that's Weatherman Sam. Probably be back some point next week. We got a question here in the why bench. Someone's asking why bench Julio, because Julio is injured. He's a game time decision. And that's enough for me to just put him right on the bench. Because one, he might not even play. Julio Jones might not even play. But if he does play, he's also not going to be playing at 100%. So I'd actually much prefer Russell Gage over Julio Jones this week. Russell Gage also, he's dealing with his own injury. But he's not a game time decision. He's likely to play today. Morning, Sam. I got to pick between Cordero Patterson and A.J. Dillon on the flex. Full PPR. Yeah, this one's easy, Jacob. You got to go A.J. Dillon. Again, look at my top 10 running back rankings if you're watching live on YouTube. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok, you can see a little bit more info if you come to the YouTube live. Link is right in the bio, like my top 10 rankings at every single position. And I have A.J. Dillon ranked number 10. I have Aaron Jones at 7, A.J. Dillon number 10. Guys, A.J. Dillon, he was the number 9 running back in PPR leagues last week. And the Packers only scored 7 points. He led the team in receiving. I'm not saying he's going to lead the team in receiving every week, but I think there's going to be weeks where either A.J. Dillon or Aaron Jones lead the team in receiving. Allen Lazard's supposed to come back this week, but he's might not be at full strength still, so that'll be an interesting thing to watch as well. But yeah, I'm definitely playing A.J. Dillon over Cordero Patterson in a full PPR league. Also Sutton, Edmonds, or Darrell Henderson in the flex, full PPR. Yeah, this one is definitely tough. I like Henderson, I think, more than Edmonds this week. That Dolphins-Ravens game, though, is going to be really, really exciting. I am actually, let me pull up my picks against the spread really quickly on the YouTube live so you guys can just see my general thoughts about the spreads for each game. I did go exactly 50% in week 1, 8 for 16. Obviously not great, not terrible, could be worse. It was definitely a difficult week 1 against the spread. I did go 1 for 1 though. I did take the Chargers with the points on Thursday Night Football. I believe they did cover even though they lost, which is exactly what I predicted on Thursday night actually. So I am now slightly over 50%. But yeah, I do think this Dolphins-Ravens game, I like the Dolphins against the spread, but I think the Ravens win the game. I think the Dolphins receivers are really the players you want this week. The Ravens secondary all of a sudden is completely decimated. Again, they're out with it. They're without their top 4 corners in this game today. Potentially Marcus Peters, he might come back, but I don't think he is this week. So I think it's going to be next week for Marcus Peters. That's huge for Tyreek Hill, huge for Jalen Waddle. It's not as big for Chase Edmonds. I did like Chase Edmonds' usage a lot in week 1, though. I think he's a really good guy to have on your squad. But I like Henderson more against the Falcons. The Rams are 10-point favorites against the Falcons. I'm taking the Falcons against the spread there. I think that's just way too many points for a Falcons team that actually did okay in week 1 outside of the fourth quarter. But yeah, I'll probably go Henderson for the safety here over Sutton, over Edmonds. But for me, it's between Henderson and Edmonds, I think. Henderson or T. Higgins, I'm okay rocking with Darrell Henderson in this situation as well. Yeah, we're not starting Julio Jones this week, guys. You can't start Julio Jones this week. We got a question in the YouTube live about Julio Jones. So Mark Ingram, I'm getting some questions about Mark Ingram. Let me answer this one on the YouTube live first. And I will go game by game, talking through my thoughts on each game. Guys, we'll be live basically right up till kickoff. So I will get to as many questions as I can. I will shout out the WalterPicks app as well, though, because if I can't get to your start-sit questions, I spent the last 3 years helping build the WalterPicks app, which can answer all of your start-sit questions. Gives you the best projection points, custom to your league settings. Also gives you boom and bust probabilities for each player and the matchup rating. So definitely check out the WalterPicks app. It's completely free to download, and you can do infinite start-sit comparisons for free. There are some premium features that do cost money, but you don't need to pay for those if that's not for you. Julio Jones, Brandon Ayuk, the Bazooka, or Brees. Yeah, it's got to be Ayuk this week. Again, I'm much more bullish on Trey Lance than the average person, though, heading into this week. So you got to understand that. Like, if you're not with me on Trey Lance, then maybe you can think about Brees Hall, but I'm definitely not starting Julio Jones. And I think Brandon Ayuk is a big bounce-back candidate. There's a lot of bounce-back candidates today. Week 1 was not a great week for everyone. Allen Robinson, especially on that Thursday night opener, he had 1 catch, 12 yards. Absolutely brutal start for Allen Robinson, but I think he bounces back in a big way this week too. I'm definitely in on Allen Robinson this week. I think I have him as a top 15 wide receiver. Are we going to see a Robert Tonyan game with the below average Bears defense and Rodgers maybe with a little distrust after the week 1 struggle with rookies and Tonyan as a multi-year starter? Yeah, I could definitely see this. I don't think I have Tonyan in my top 10 tight ends, but he could easily end up in the top 10 tight ends. Again, after really after the top 3 guys. Maybe you could include the top 4, like Dalton Schultz, TJ Hawkinson area is where like there's maybe a slightly bigger tier, but basically everyone after like Dallas Goedert could score 0 points. Tyler Higbee could score 0 points. Zach Ertz could score 0 points. I like how Pratt Freiermuth looked in week 1, but he could score 0 points. Albert O could score 0 points. Like the tight end position, again, all these guys have a decent ceiling. That's why they're all those guys I just mentioned. They're in my top 10 tight end rankings. But yeah, I could easily see Tonyan start to be one of the most go-to guys for Aaron Rodgers, and that. But still, he's going to need touchdowns. Like at the tight end position, it's pretty binary. You score a touchdown, you're a top 10 tight end in fantasy that week. You don't score a touchdown, you're probably not a top 10 tight end in fantasy outside of the top few guys. Like that's just how it's going to be. So I don't hate Tunyon. I think you're onto something here, especially with the distrust. The distrust is a real thing for Rodgers for sure. Owen's asking a question here, DeAndre Swift or Henderson. This one's really tough, man. Personally, I'm going Henderson, though. Again, I don't love going into a game. And I'm not trying to throw shade at DeAndre Swift, guys. I love DeAndre Swift. I think he's a top 10 running back rest of season in fantasy football. But we have reports straight from the coaching staff that Swift is not 100% and that he's going to test it out pregame and that they think he's going to play. But even if he does play, that they want him on somewhat of a touch cap because they don't want him re-injuring and re-aggravating his injury. So that's definitely concerning for Swift. I still think he could get some high-value touches. Like he could still easily score 10 points. But his ceiling is definitely capped, and his floor is definitely lower this week, given those comments and given his injury. So, yeah, I think I would go Henderson over Swift. And you got to react to this stuff, guys. So you got to this information is out there to the public. You got to react to it. I have my wide receiver rankings up right now. Really, there's to me the top 8 are in their own tier. In fantasy, the last 2, I think you could put a lot of guys at this 9-10 spot. I have Marquise Brown, Mike Evans, wrapping up my top 10. Marquise Brown didn't do great week 1. He had a really bad first half. He did end up scoring a touchdown, saving his day. He still finished with 14 points. I still think his ceiling is astronomically high. I think if you're looking for a guy to play in tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel, Marquise Brown, he's probably going to be pretty low owned. And he's going up against the Raiders. The Raiders are going to torch the Cardinals secondary, just like we saw the Chiefs torch their secondary. Pick one for flex: Damian Pierce, Russell Gage, Damian Harris, or Ashton Dillon. I was pretty anti-Damian Pierce heading into the season. That obviously looked pretty good in week 1, but I have a little bit of optimism for Damian Pierce today. I think Damian Pierce is within reason to start in fantasy because similar to this DeAndre Swift news, I mean, the coaching staff after the game, they were like, yeah, we need to get Damian Pierce the ball more. Like they wanted to get Damian Pierce the ball more. And looking back, they sort of regretted not giving Damian Pierce the ball more. Rex Burkhead out touches Damian Pierce in week 1, out snaps Damian Pierce in week 1. I don't think that's going to be the case in week 2. Obviously, there's a lot of risk there because Rex Burkhead will still be involved, and he did get most of the passing work. This is why I was fading Damian Pierce. Guys, Damian Pierce, he's on the Texans. If he doesn't have the pass-catching role on the Texans, how many times are the Texans going to be leading this season to get Damian Pierce a lot of touches? Like, that's why I was fading him. But the fact that the coaches want to get him involved more makes me a little bit more optimistic. So I think he's okay considering. But, yeah, even in this situation, I think I would go Gage or Damian Harris. I'm not starting Ashton Dillon. I will consider Paris Campbell in some situations. Michael Pittman, he's out today. Obviously, that's a really, really big injury. But also Alec Pierce is out. So the top two of the top 3 receivers for the Colts are out. I think Paris Campbell's the next man up. Ashton Dillon will get some run. But Ashton Dillon's floor, I think, is still 0 points. I don't think Paris Campbell's floor is 0 points. Paris Campbell actually played a lot in week 1, and he was playing a lot from the slot, too. One of the highest slot rates in the league in week 1. So, but yeah, going back to this question, I think I would go Gage in a PPR league. If this is not a PPR league, I would go Damian Harris. I do appreciate you guys letting me know your scoring settings, though, for these start-sit questions because it will impact the answer. And that's why I do recommend also all these start-sit questions, ask them in the WalterPicks app, completely free. You can put in your custom settings. So that will all be accounted for. 6:30 here in Cali. Xavier, that's what I'm talking about, man. You ain't missing the stream. I've been up since around 6 a.m. Eastern as well, getting everything I need ready for this stream because there's a lot to talk through, a lot of storylines to follow. Xavier, I appreciate you getting up early. You dressing Lenny today? Yeah, you got to play Lenny Fournette. He's another guy. He did deal with an injury, but he's like the workload he saw in week 1. I think you have to be starting Leonard Fournette. I definitely have a little bit of concern with Leonard Fournette. He is coming off a hamstring injury. He did practice on Friday, though. Fournette was limited in all 3 practice sessions this week, already putting him on the optimistic side of questionable. He's expected to play without any limitations. So, yeah, I think you got to be playing Leonard Fournette this week. Pick 2, T. Higgins, A-Rob, Judy, or Hunt full PPR. I'm not benching Allen Robinson this week. I know a lot of people want to be benching Allen Robinson after a tough week 1. I think I would probably go, but T. Higgins and Judy are just as high of a ceiling as A-Rob. So I honestly might go with those 2 guys. Got to monitor the T. Higgins injury news, but it sounds like he's going to be at full strength. He cleared the concussion protocol. So I think honestly I might go T. Higgins and Judy, but I don't feel great about benching A-Rob. I'm fine benching Kareem Hunt though. Overall, those guys in a PPR league. I know Kareem Hunt went off in week 1, but we certainly can't expect that from Hunt every single week. He did get out touched by Nick Chubb in week 1. We are, let me go game by game really quickly before I go back to some of these start-sit questions. I'll pull up my top 10 rankings at the quarterback position. Not sure if I've showed those ones yet. Again, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, guys. If you are watching live on YouTube, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. It helps me out a ton. If you're watching live on TikTok too, make sure you hit the follow button. I'm posting content every single week, basically every single day on TikTok. We're live every single Sunday morning, every single Thursday morning as well. But also, if you come to the YouTube live, it's a little bit more likely I can answer your question on YouTube because I can pull up your comment on YouTube. But also, there's a little bit more info on YouTube. Again, the link to the YouTube live right in the TikTok bio. Hey, everyone, buy the app. I appreciate that, Tyler. We will go get game by game after this. And yeah, the number one way you could possibly support is by just checking out the WalterPicks app. It's completely free to download in the iOS and Android app store. Ayuka the Bazooka or Elijah Moore, and then Darrell Henderson or Antonio Gibson, both really tough ones. It's tough to bench Antonio Gibson after week one. And they have a game against the Lions today. The Lions were just torched by the Eagles. I think you got to start Antonio Gibson in all these games without Brian Robinson. Antonio Gibson's a top 15 option at running back. I'm playing Antonio Gibson, I think, over Darrell Henderson. And then Ayuka the Bazooka versus Elijah Moore. Man, one of the most disappointing week one performances was Elijah Moore. When you really dive into the numbers for the Jets, Joe Flacco throws the ball 59 times. Elijah Moore only sees 7 targets. Elijah Moore was balling out at the end of last season. He was averaging almost 16 fantasy points per game. I still think the ceiling for Elijah Moore is much higher than the ceiling for Brandon Ayuk. But in week 2, I'm okay going Ayuk. Again, I'm higher on Brandon Ayuk than most people. Elijah Moore's over-under today, 49.5 receiving yards. Ayuka, the Bazooka's over-under is 40.5. So there's only 9-yard difference in their over-under. But I have a lot more faith in Trey Lance than I do in Joe Flacco. So yeah, I think I would go with Ayuka the Bazooka. But again, it is definitely close between those two guys. But we got to see it from Elijah Moore a little bit more. All right, let's go game by game. Let me pull up my picks against the spread again really quickly. I want to talk through some of the storylines in these games and some of the things I'm going to be watching really closely. First of all, you might be surprised if you were tuned in really to me at all of this offseason, or if you're tuned in to me in week 1 this Sunday morning live, that I'm taking the Patriots against the spread over the Steelers. And I'm not going to be picking the Patriots very often this season. Again, you probably won't find a more pessimistic Patriots fan than me, but I also am really low on the Steelers offense. I think the Steelers offensive line and the fact that the Steelers had 5 turnovers in week 1. The Bengals had none. 5 turnovers against the Bengals, and they should have lost still. The average margin of victory when you have 5 more turnovers than the other team, like you force 5 more turnovers than the other team historically in the NFL over the last 10 years, the average margin of victory is like 18 points. 18 points usually you win by when you win the turnover battle by 5. And the Steelers should have lost after turning them over 5 times. They're not going to turn over the Patriots 5 times. They're probably not going to have another game this season with 5 turnovers. Like 5 turnovers is absolutely insane. By far the most in week 1. A few of those were a little fluky. I think mostly turnovers can be attributed to luck, not entirely. Obviously, you got to earn turnovers as a good defense as well. But they're not going to turn over any team 5 times, I don't think, again, this season. The offensive line looked really bad. They could not move the ball at all. I'm not very optimistic about the Patriots offense today. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game. But yeah, I have faith in Bill Belichick against this Steelers offense. So I am taking the Patriots with the point against the points. They're 3-point favorites today in Pittsburgh. And if the Patriots lose, by the way, the Patriots definitely could lose this game. I am taking them against the spread. They definitely could lose this game. If they lose, man, nail in the coffin for this entire season for the Patriots, because they're going to start 0-4. They get the Ravens, and then I think they get the Packers after that. Like, they're going to lose both those games, hands down. So it's looking pretty bleak, guys. And I know nobody wants to hear it from a Pats fan, but it's looking pretty bleak for the Pats. I am taking the Saints plus 2.5 against the Bucs. I think the Saints absolutely could beat the Buccaneers. Buccaneers offensive line looked pretty sketchy in week 1. I'm still starting Leonard Fournette. You're definitely starting Mike Evans, who he was dealing with injuries of his own. I'm actually like Russell Gage this week too. I don't think you could start Julio Jones, though. Again, he's dealing with his own injury. But I think you can start basically all the Saints receivers. Alvin Kamara is going to be out today, most likely. I am trotting out Taysom Hill in my tight end slot in a few leagues. I got him off the waiver wire in a bunch of leagues because the tight end position is just so brutal that if I'm starting Irv Smith or Cole Kmet, both guys that got 0 points last week, I'm okay putting them on the bench for a week and trotting out Taysom Hill out there, which is what I'm doing in a couple spots. I am taking the Dolphins plus 3.5 against the Ravens, but again, I think the Ravens win the game. I think the Dolphins have a good chance to cover the spread. Again, this could be one of the highest scoring games of the week. I think in daily fantasy, you got to have some action in this Dolphins-Ravens game, whether it be Tyreek Hill, who I absolutely love this week. His prop has been set way too low. I don't know if that's moved yet, but it was at like 65.5 when this week started, and I was hammering that it's at 67.5. Still really like Tyreek Hill's prop at that spot. Again, the Ravens are without their top 4 corners today. I mean, they got backup practice squad corners that are going to be out there trying to cover Tyreek Hill, that are going to be out there trying to cover Jalen Waddle. You want a piece of that passing attack. I liked what I saw out of Tua in week 1. I talked to a Dolphins friend recently, and he said that the entire Dolphins broadcast was just bashing Tua for some reason, even though he had a pretty solid week 1 against a kind of scary Patriots secondary. Not like the Patriots have the most scary secondary this year. They did lose J.C. Jackson. I'm actually most worried in this pass game about just the Steelers receivers. I have no fear about Mitch Trubisky, but guarding Chase Claypool, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, I think that could actually be a pretty tough task for the Pats. But yeah, guys, Tua, he completes 70% of his passes in week 1, 270 yards, 8.2 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no turnovers. I mean, it's a great week from Tua. He had the 7th highest yards per attempt in the league. His deep ball completion percentage was 9th in the league. His QBR was 5th in the league. Tua had a great week 1, and I think he's going to have an even better week 2 against a really decimated Ravens secondary. So yeah, I'm in on Tua this week. I'm still not starting Mike Gesicki though, and he was on my do not draft list. Guys, get Mike Gesicki. Really, like you can drop Mike Gesicki. You can send him to the waiver wire. I know he was good last season. He's a good receiver. He's being used differently this season. He's getting way less usage. He's blocking way more. You can't trust Mike Gesicki. You're toying with another 0 points in your lineup if you're starting Mike Gesicki. I'm taking the Browns 6.5 against the Jets. I want nothing to do with Joe Flacco in this offense. I do hope Elijah Moore can pick it up though. I do like the Falcons plus 10 as well. I think there's like an outside shot the Falcons could actually make this a game, but I do think the Rams win the game. All right. Let me get back to one more game. Let me talk through one more game before I get back to some of the start sit questions, some of the other questions in the chat. By the way, I do really appreciate you letting me know the scoring setting in the question that you're asking, because that will dictate a lot of times the answer. But also, if I don't get to your start sit, I will try to get to as many as I can throughout the stream as I sort of talk through the different storylines heading into week 2. You got to check out the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Android app store. That will also account for your custom league settings, and you can do infinite start sit comparisons on there. So I do appreciate you checking that out as well. Chase Edmonds, Travis Etienne, Allen Robinson, or Curtis Samuel at flex. Yeah, I'm not going Curtis Samuel. I know Curtis Samuel, he had a good week 1. I think he had 11 targets, 4 carries, like 15 opportunities for Curtis Samuel, near the top of the league. I don't expect that to be super consistent for Curtis Samuel. We know Terry McLaurin is going to be the top receiver there. And Jahan Dotson looked pretty good in week 1 too. I don't feel great about starting Curtis Samuel over any of these 3 guys. I don't think I would start him over any of these 3 guys. Personally, this one's between Edmonds and Allen Robinson for me. I actually think Etienne's week 1 was more encouraging than people were giving it credit for. A lot of people were bashing on Travis Etienne and where we were drafting him this offseason after week 1. I think where you were drafting him, yeah, that might have been a little bit high on Travis Etienne. I was drafting him pretty high too. I was taking him in the 4th round in a lot of best ball leagues. But he did have 2 really good chances at receiving touchdowns in week 1. Like, he should have caught 2 touchdowns in week 1. And if he did, obviously it'd be a much different storyline for Travis Etienne heading into week 2. But he only had 4 carries, and he only had 2 catches. He had 6 touches in week 1. That's not great. And James Robinson did look good. I think the floor for Travis Etienne is lower than I was hoping for. In a PPR league, he's definitely still viable, though. I think I would personally go with Allen Robinson in a PPR league over Chase Edmonds. That might not sit well with you after Allen Robinson's week 1. But guys, A-Rob, he gets the Falcons this week. I think A-Rob is a really, really obvious bounce back candidate. Like, the Rams have said all offseason that A-Rob is going to be a big part of the offense. He plays almost every single snap in week 1. He does basically nothing. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, really the only receiver in this offense that showed promise in week 1. But Allen Robinson was out there for 96% of the snaps. He really only didn't run a route on 1 dropback for Matthew Stafford. He ran 39 routes, and it was against the Bills. The Bills have a very good secondary. The Falcons secondary is not comparable to the Bills secondary. So I do think Allen Robinson's in a pretty good bounce back spot. But Chase Edmonds is definitely safer. So if you want the safety, go to Edmonds. But I shoot for the ceiling. Start for flex, Michael Thomas, Travis Etienne, Jeff Wilson, Zeke, or Jamal Williams. Yeah, it's got to be Michael Thomas. Tad, you got to go Michael Thomas. He's in another good spot. No Alvin Kamara this week too. It's a bump for all the Saints receivers. We bumped up their target share projection just slightly with the Alvin Kamara news that he's not going to play. By the way, expected to play is Kadarius Toney, who apparently he's in the doghouse week 1. The Kadarius Toney was on my do not draft list, but he was one of the guys I was most nervous to put on my do not draft list because Kadarius Toney is insanely talented. He reminds me so much of He reminds me so much. Oh, wow. I didn't even have this light on. Now you guys can actually see me. Kadarius Toney is so talented, but he picked up another hamstring injury this week. Supposedly he's still going to play. We got to see it from Toney, though, till we put him in our starting lineups. A.J. Dillon or Allen Robinson, PPR. Yeah, Mason, I'm not benching A.J. Dillon. Let me pull up my running back rankings as well. Thank you for the gift, Brian, in the TikTok live. We are live on YouTube and TikTok right now. By the way, I will answer as many start-sit questions from both streams, so keep those coming. I will try to get to as many as I can, but you can also come to the YouTube live. You can see my top 10 rankings for each position, which will also probably answer a lot of start-sits because, guys, let me pull up my DraftKings lineup in a second, but I do have, actually, I can pull both up. I have A.J. Dillon in my top 10 running backs this week. I don't know how you don't. He was number 9 running back in PPR leagues last week, and the Packers only scored 7 points. The Packers scored 7 points. A.J. Dillon still finishes 9th. He leads the team in receiving. You got to feel he has almost 100 total yards and a touchdown last week. I like A.J. Dillon a lot. Start Renfrow or Drake at flex PPR. You got to get Kenny Drake far away from your starting lineups. Do not start Kenny Drake. Definitely Hunter Renfrow. The Raiders have a really good matchup this week, guys. I have Devonta Adams as my number 2 receiver. I have Cooper Kupp and Devonta Adams ahead of Justin Jefferson. Ranking these top 3 receivers is so tough. Obviously, it doesn't really matter. Like, you're starting all 3 of those guys, obviously. But it's so hard not to have Devonta Adams in your top 2. He gets the Cardinals. He had a insane 40% target share in week 1. I mean, Devonta Adams, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, they're clearly in a tier of their own. And early wide receivers looking like a smash play in fantasy this season so far. Obviously, we're only 1 week in. But yeah, I'm not benching Devonta Adams, obviously, but I'm also not benching Hunter Renfrow. And even Darren Waller, I think, is in a better spot this week than last week. The Cardinals secondary is not good. It is not good at all. We saw it from the Chiefs. The Chiefs walked the ball down the field basically all game against the Cardinals. Let me pull up my DraftKings lineup here really quickly. I did have a pretty successful week in DraftKings. I was like 1 Evan Ingram touchdown away from some pretty big prizes on DraftKings in week 1. He wasn't able to do it for me somehow. I don't know why I do this to myself every single year at times. And I'm actually playing Evan Ingram in a few DraftKings lineups, not all of them like I did last week. But I mean, I don't know why I always find myself rooting for Evan Ingram. It's like an annual holiday for Sam. I just get to be let down by Evan Ingram every single year, every single week. Sometime I'm just let down by Evan Ingram. I don't know how I always find myself rooting for him. But he did run a lot of routes. I think he only had 4 catches though, and he didn't fall in the end zone. So he did bust last week. But here's my DraftKings lineup. I have Trey Lance in basically every single DraftKings lineup this week. I think I did one of the 20 entry max $3 tournaments. And I have Trey Lance in basically every single lineup in that one, most of which are stacked with Brandon Ayuk the Bazooka. I think we see what we're seeing with Trey Lance. A lot of the real NFL, real football analysis is starting to seep in to the fantasy football analysis. And sometimes that doesn't actually make that much sense. We've seen this with Lamar Jackson heading into this year too. A lot of people, they still can't wrap their head around Lamar Jackson being considered a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. And because it's because of his passing. But guys, guess what? That's not exactly how fantasy football works. Rushing matters way more than passing in fantasy football. The way that the scoring works is you get 1 point for every 10 rushing yards, but only 1 point for every 25 passing yards, and rushing touchdowns count for more than passing touchdowns. You got to account for this in fantasy football. And nobody's doing this with Trey Lance right now. Everybody's so down on Trey Lance. It feels like that's starting to seep into fantasy. But then you go and dig into the numbers from week 1. Jalen Hurts leads the league, leads the quarterbacks with 17 carries. Insanely strong sign for Jalen Hurts this season. But guess who was number 2 in quarterback rush attempts? It was Trey Lance. He ran the ball 13 times. I don't think he's going to run the ball that many times every game this season. Obviously, the weather might have impacted that a little, but also Elijah Mitchell gets hurt. And that could mean more carries for Trey Lance. And I'm willing to give Trey Lance a pass, too, throwing the ball in that weather in week 1. So I think we see a much better performance from Trey Lance this week. I'm betting on that in DraftKings. He's priced too low for his upside and his floor. I'm also playing Saquon and CMC, the 2 best receiving backs, in my opinion, heading into this week. Obviously, JT is a really good option as well. But I want guys on DraftKings. It's a PPR format. I want guys to catch the ball. Saquon's probably going to be the most rostered running back in the league, but he looks so good, guys, in week 1. He's going to get fed on the ground and in the air. So I like both those guys. I am running it back with Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, probably my most disappointing play in week 1. But I do think he still has a really high ceiling. I do think Kyle Pitts will bounce back this week. I am going with Marquise Brown again, Allen Robinson again. I think both guys have really high ceilings. And then Paris Campbell, I think he's going to be the top receiver for the Colts today. I don't have insane confidence in him. I'm not starting him in all situations. But Paris Campbell, there's no Michael Pittman. There's no Alec Pierce. So I do like Paris Campbell a lot this week. And then last but not least, I am going with the Bengals defense. Going up against Cooper Rush, probably a bottom 3 quarterback in the NFL heading into week 2, maybe the worst. Maybe he might even be worse than Joe Flacco, and that's definitely saying something. So I do like the Bengals defense. They're priced like they're playing Dak, but they're playing Cooper Rush. They're the 3rd lowest priced defense on DraftKings. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok, you can literally see my DraftKings lineup on the YouTube live up on the screen rather than just me talking through it. So definitely come to the YouTube live. I'm seeing a lot of questions in the TikTok live really quickly and want to address these guys that I'm saying you must bench, because obviously there's a different array, a different spectrum of these guys that you really need to bench. These first guys, they're not even playing. Chris Godwin, Alvin Kamara, Michael Pittman, they're out today, or they're at least doubtful today. So definitely get those guys out of your lineup. George Kittle seems like he's on the right side of questionable, but he still might not play, and he's definitely still not at full strength. So I don't want him in my lineup. Julio Jones, he looks like he's on the wrong side of questionable today. He's going to be a game time decision, but that's enough for me to get off of Julio Jones. We've seen him struggle with these hamstring injuries in the past. I think it might actually be a knee injury. Let me actually confirm exactly what the injury is. Don't want to speculate and give you guys the wrong info on exactly what the injury is. It's a knee injury, and he's a true game time decision. I'm out on that, definitely. Even if he plays, he might not be 100%. So I'm out on Julio Jones. Tony Pollard, I'm taking a big L on Pollard. I have him in way too many leagues, and he is not going to be a guy I can trust this week in my starting lineups. I'm starting Ramondre Stevenson over him in some spots because Tony Pollard has a horrible offensive line, and he's Cooper Rush throwing the ball, and Zeke is still going to get a huge portion of that backfield. And we didn't see enough receiving out of him in week 1 to have any sort of confidence in him, even in PPR leagues. Cam Akers, guys, he's total dust. I want nothing to do with Cam Akers in my starting lineup. He has shown zero explosiveness since his Achilles injury, and week 1 was about as bad as it could possibly get for Cam Akers. I want nothing to do with him this week. Devin Duvernay, guys, please don't smash Devin Duvernay into your lineups. I know he had a good week 1, but don't chase week 1 and week 2. He had 4 catches. That was it. I think he only had 4 targets. That was it. In week 1, he only played half the snaps. That was probably going to be the only game in Devin Duvernay's career where he scores multiple touchdowns. There might not be another game for him, not even just this season, ever. Devin Duvernay is not a very special player. And I drafted Devin Duvernay in a gross amount of best ball leagues. I love Devin Duvernay. I'm rooting for Devin Duvernay, but I'm definitely not starting him in season-long leagues. So don't put that thought in your head. I think that's a dangerous thought. Mike Gesicki, I think he should be on the waiver wire in basically every league. And then Deandre Swift. I think Deandre Swift is the guy that, you can definitely still start Deandre Swift, depending on who you have, though. Again, Deandre Swift, he's dealing with an injury. He has, I think it was a hamstring. Let me pull up the exact injury again for Swift. It sounds like he's going to play, but it also sounds like he could be on a touch and snap count. Expect to play week 2, but the team may have to be selective about his usage. Rappaport says selective with his words here. He isn't outright saying Swift is on a touch count. For a player who's normally splitting work with his backup anyway, though, it's possible nothing about Swift's role changes. However, it does make him much riskier this week. Again, this is an ankle injury for Swift. Usually we do see guys play through ankle injuries, so I might be jumping the gun a tiny bit saying you have to bench him. You don't have to bench DeAndre Swift, but I think you should at least consider other options with DeAndre Swift this week. He does have an ankle injury. We saw Jamal Williams steal 2 touchdowns last week. I don't dislike DeAndre Swift. A fully healthy DeAndre Swift, guys, is a top 5 maybe running back in fantasy football. He's not fully healthy. So I'm a little bit nervous about him. That's all. Maybe he should be on a fringe bench list, though. Not all these other guys I think are pretty much must benches. I don't think Swift is a must bench, but I put him on this list because I wanted to talk about the injury, and I am a little bit concerned about him. Obviously, he had a fantastic week 1, though, guys. He had 175 yards and a touchdown in week 1. So you don't feel great about benching DeAndre Swift. Mooney or Allen Robinson? Yeah, 2 guys. Let's talk about Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson. I like this question a lot from the TikTok live. Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson, pretty similar week 1s. I mean, both guys I liked a lot heading into the season. Both guys I thought would have 1,000-yard receiving seasons heading into week 1. And they both have complete duds. I think both only had 1 catch. Did Mooney even have a catch? I think he had 1 catch. Obviously, though, you can give Mooney, I feel a more of a pass than even Allen Robinson because Darnell Mooney and both guys, really, they both ran a lot of routes. Actually, Mooney only ran 15 routes, but he was running routes on basically every drop back. But the Bears barely threw the ball in week 1 because of the weather situation against the 49ers. That's why I'm also still pretty high on Trey Lance. Darnell Mooney turns 3 targets into 1 catch, 8 yards. Allen Robinson, I think he turned 2 targets into 1 catch, 12 yards. So really similar week 1, really duds from both guys. But Darnell Mooney, he's so clearly the top receiver still for the Bears. A much better matchup this week against the Packers, who were just absolutely torched by Kirk Cousins in Justin Jefferson. So yeah, I like Darnell Mooney this week, but I also like Allen Robinson this week against the Falcons. I actually think Allen Robinson is probably a little bit safer of a play because I'm more confident that the Rams will throw the ball a lot than I am that the Bears will throw the ball a lot. Again, they both ran routes on basically every drop back, but Allen Robinson ran like 3 times as many routes as Darnell Mooney in week 1. I don't think that'll be quite the same in week 2. So it's definitely close. I think A-Rob's ceiling's a little bit higher. Darnell Mooney's floor is probably a little bit safer because, again, he's the top receiver on his own team. A-Rob's not the top receiver on his own team. But, yeah, it's a really close one. Definitely a really close one. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Hayden. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. If you are watching live on YouTube, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers this season. We're like 7/10 of the way there. I think we're right around 7,000. If you're watching live on TikTok too, smash the follow button. We're trying to hit 200,000 TikTok followers this season. You guys can help me hit that as well. Pick 2, Michael Carter, Michael Thomas, Cordell Patterson, or CD. Yeah, it's got to be Michael Thomas and CD Lamb. And I get it. I'm terrified about CD Lamb. You should be terrified about CD Lamb. But we still have to start CD Lamb. We still have to start him. He saw 11 targets in week 1. I have no confidence in Cooper Rush, but I also have no confidence in Joe Flacco with Michael Carter's situation. I don't hate Cordell Patterson, but my bet would be that we don't see Cordell Patterson get another 22 carries this week. And you got to understand the context around Cordell Patterson. I'm actually very interested to see how that Falcons backfield shakes out this week because Damien Williams was supposed to be pretty involved in this offense as maybe the number 1 running back, or at least as a close, like, second running back. He gets hurt immediately in week 1. And the only other running back on the depth chart was on there for special teams. So he was basically just Cordell Patterson. He sees, I think it was a career high, 22 carries. I don't think he had a single game. No, not a single game last season. And you can pretty much bet no season before that. He even had 20 carries. He had 22 carries in week 1. I don't think we're going to see many games with him with 20 plus carries, though he did have 5 targets, 3 catches, 136 total yards, 1 touchdown. Like that all is great for Cordell. And I love Cordell Patterson, but I don't think I'd start him in this situation. Taysom, A-Rob, or Hines. Shout out Taysom Hill. Questions. I am starting Taysom Hill over Cole Kmet in one league. I wouldn't advise that. I don't think to anyone, but I got to bench Kmet after a 0-point performance, despite the weather. You hate to see that. I'm definitely starting Allen Robinson though in this situation, like pretty easily. Hey Sam, Zeke or AJ Dillon. Yeah, I'm starting AJ Dillon. Look, I have AJ Dillon ranked as my number 10 running back this week. You won't find Zeke in my top 10 running back rankings. Absolutely not. Let me pull up let's pull up the wide receiver rankings. Why not Duvernay? So I knew I was going to get a lot of Devin Duvernay questions this week because I've already been seeing them in the comments all week. You don't start Devin Duvernay, guys. He's probably the number 2 receiver for the Ravens. But guess what? The Ravens tried out 2 or 3 tight ends at a higher rate than everyone else in the league. They want to be extremely run heavy. And Rashad Bateman is the clear top receiver alongside Mark Andrews. Devin Duvernay had 4 targets in week 1, and he could easily see less than that in week 2. He turned 4 targets into 2 touchdowns. Like, it's just not going to happen again. Like, it's just, you're really chasing a really unlikely scenario with Devin Duvernay. I would much prefer, I think he's like on the same level of guys like Kendrick Bourne. Like Kendrick Bourne had a really bad week 1. He got 1 big pass, but I wouldn't be shocked if Kendrick Bourne outscores Devin Duvernay. I won't be shocked if Paris Campbell outscores Devin Duvernay. I won't be shocked if Devin Duvernay has less than 3 points. Like it won't be that surprising. So yeah, I want nothing to do with Devin Duvernay. And again, I'm actually a big fan of Devin Duvernay because I have him on a way too many of my best ball teams. I was taking him in the last round in a lot of best ball leagues because I have a lot of Lamar and I stacked him with Lamar. So it was a good week 1 for Duvernay. I'm rooting for him, but in a season-long league, definitely not. Hey, did DJ Moore have a dud last week, or will this be a trend throughout the season? I'm debating whether to put him at flex instead of Miles Sanders or David Montgomery. Yeah, this is not an easy decision, especially if this is a PPR league. You want DJ Moore in your lineup. I actually have DJ Moore in one of my dynasty leagues. Really disappointing week 1. I'm okay still starting DJ Moore this week, though. We've seen a large sample of DJ Moore being very #good at football. With worse quarterbacks than Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm not saying Mayfield looked great in week 1, but DJ Moore was out there 100% of the snaps. He didn't play very much in the slot, which historically he has played a decent amount in the slot, but he had a pretty good 24% target share still. Bless you. Thank you. I guess we're allergic to the DJ Moore analysis. But yeah, he had 6 targets, 3 catches, 43 yards. I think you go with DJ Moore still. I'm okay still going with DJ Moore. Sam, 2-year WalterPicks subscriber here. Wow, I really do appreciate that. Let me scroll back up to that question from Zach and champion subscriber. Yeah, the number one way you could support me is one of the subscriptions in the WalterPicks app. They start as little as $10 a month. This year, we lowered our pricing this year. We also give a 10-day completely free 7-day trial for anyone that hasn't used the WalterPicks app trial before. So definitely check that out. Zach, I really appreciate it, though. Seriously, you and the rest of our subscribers in the WalterPicks app, you are why I'm still here doing this after 3 years. It's so exciting, man. I'm truly blessed to be able to do this every Sunday morning. I'm in need of a QB2 this week. Wentz, Fields, Daniel Jones, Mariota. Love the app. I mean, Carson Wentz, I feel like is the name that stands out to me the most. Obviously, all four of these guys have like some interesting appeal. Justin Fields, like maybe he could bounce back. We just saw Kirk Cousins go off against the Packers, but Wentz really did impress in week one. I know it wasn't the hardest matchup against the Jaguars, but 313 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He was the number 3 quarterback in week one, and it's not like he has a horrible matchup this week. So I don't hate Carson Wentz. He's up against the Detroit Lions this week, who were just torched by Jalen Hurts. I don't hate Carson Wentz at all this week. I think I would probably go with Carson Wentz. I don't think he's going to be a top 3 quarterback again, but I still think he has an interesting ceiling. Pick one, Jefferson, Jeff Wilson, Taysom Hill, Robbie Anderson, full PPR. Yeah, this one I think I would go Jeff Wilson. Robbie Anderson, he had pretty exciting usage, though, in week one. I would not play Taysom Hill over either of those guys. Guys, I'm only playing Taysom Hill over tight ends. I'm never starting multiple tight ends. I know Taysom Hill's like low-key not a tight end, low-key a tight end, but like I'm not starting Taysom Hill over any non-tight end. I'm never starting any tight end basically over any non-tight end. Like, don't do this to yourself. Tight ends are already so brutal in fantasy. Don't start multiple tight ends. Don't do that to yourself. All right, Jeff Wilson versus Robbie Anderson. Yeah, I think I'd go Jeff Wilson, but Robbie Anderson did see really encouraging usage. I think maybe that last name change, he changes his name. It was his first name. He changed from Robby to Robbie for the season, and maybe that actually is really coming in clutch for Robbie Anderson, who he had 102 yards in week one, 8 targets. But I don't think, I think that's his ceiling. He did play every single snap. Him and DJ Moore, they were out there for every single snap for the Cardinals. He did have more air yards, I think, than DJ Moore. Yeah, he actually had the 6th highest air yard percentage in week one. Very encouraging for him, but I don't feel great about Robbie Anderson over Jeff Wilson, who should be starting for the 49ers this week. How do you feel about Mark Ingram now that Alvin Kamara is out? I don't feel great about Mark Ingram. I'm not going to lie. The Buccaneers are not a great defense to be playing. We've seen Mark Ingram do not so much in terms of the efficiency column very recently. Again, Alvin Kamara is out, though, so he's definitely in consideration. I'm not playing him in any DraftKings lineups, though. I would imagine he's going to be out there in a lot of DraftKings lineups. But I do think that you have to at least consider Mark Ingram in some situations, because he's probably going to see at least 15 touches this week with no Alvin Kamara. I see some tight end questions. Hayden Hurst or David Njoku. David Njoku was a pretty big letdown in week one. I was pretty excited about him going into the season. He gets a big 3-year contract extension, like $40 million contract extension. And we see him week one. He has a 3% target share in week one. He sees one target. He turns one target into one catch for 7 yards, 2 air yards, under 2 points for David Njoku. This is another guy like, yeah, I'm trotting out Taysom Hill over Njoku in week two until we see a little bit more target volume for Njoku. And we know the Browns, they just want to run and run and run. So yeah, I'm out on David Njoku this week. He only ran 24 routes. One catch for David Njoku on only one target. So yeah, I don't think I would go Njoku this week. Morning, Sam. Good morning, man. It doesn't feel like morning. I'm not going to lie. Right now, I'm on coffee number 2. I'll probably hit coffee number 3 later in the stream. I've been live basically right since I've woken up this morning. I woke, actually, that's not entirely true. I wake up around 6:30 on Sunday mornings because I also prep for a while for these streams. But I do try to go live by like 9:15 Eastern latest. Hunter Bateman in PPR. I'm going with Bateman. I think Hunt has a higher floor because he plays running back. Like in general, I have this belief that running backs usually have a higher floor because their touches are just locked in. They're literally getting handed the ball for their touches. Like they're a little bit more locked in. Hunt's obviously going to get some pass game work as well. But I'm very in on Bateman this week. Actually, I'm glad you brought up Bateman because he's actually my favorite player prop of the day. Is Rashad Bateman over 45.5 receiving yards. I think people are sleeping still on Rashad Bateman and how big of a role he's going to have in this offense. In week one, he only has 5 targets. He still goes over his prop line, though. He has 59 yards, 108 air yards for Rashad Bateman. He had the 12th most air yards in the NFL in week 1, and his prop line is only 45.5. I think, again, and I think this Dolphins game could be really high scoring compared to the Jets, where the Jets game was over really before it started. I mean, Joe Flacco throws the ball 59 times. They still only score, I think, 7 points in that game. Like, I have no confidence in the Jets, but the Dolphins against a Ravens secondary that's going to be without their top 4 corners. I think Rashad Bateman could easily go over 100 yards again today. Again, he didn't go over 100 yards in week 1. He did have 108 air yards, though. Again, that was top 12 in the league. His average target distance, too, was 3rd in the league. Like, this is the thing you got to understand about Rashad Bateman. He might see a slightly fewer targets than some of these other top receivers across the league alongside Mark Andrews as well. But he also is seeing extremely deep targets. Like, the targets he's getting are very valuable. He has a really good chance at deep plays every single week. 21.6 yards average target distance. He was 21.6 yards down the field on average in each of his targets in week 1. That's super, super encouraging. I don't think it's going to stay quite that high, but it still outlines just how valuable the targets Rashad Bateman are getting. They're really valuable. I think his prop line should be in the 60s, not in the 40s. So I do really like Rashad Bateman. Again, he only had 2 catches last week, and he still easily cleared this prop line because of how high value his touches are that he's getting. All right, let's get back to some of the comments. Ingram or Bateman? Yeah, I'm going Bateman over Ingram, 100%. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Alex. Devonta Smith, Jacoby Myers, and Mark Ingram at flex. Another guy, Devonta Smith, absolute goose egg in week 1. It's really tough trying out Devonta Smith after we saw what A.J. Brown did. A.J. Brown, by the way, I mean, he looked healthy, guys. A healthy A.J. Brown, he's a clear top 10 receiver in the league. I've been saying this for so long now. It was very validating to see A.J. Brown go to a new team, go to a team that really needed A.J. Brown, and he just goes off in week 1. I mean, absolutely insane target share, air yard share, everything for A.J. Brown. It looked amazing in week 1. But Devonta Smith, I think, is a pretty prime candidate this week to surprise a lot of people, too. I actually think I would play him over Jacoby Myers, over Mark Ingram. I think Mark Ingram's the safest guy in this list. I don't really trust Jacoby Myers much this week. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring, run-heavy game in the Patriots game on both sides of the ball. But Devonta Smith, I think, actually has a really intriguing ceiling still. Obviously, the Eagles, they are in – let me pull this up really quickly. Devonta Smith, yeah, he's up against the Vikings this week. The Vikings offense obviously looked really good. Yeah, this is a Monday night football game, I believe. I'm taking the Eagles in this game, but I don't feel great about taking the Eagles in this game. I think either team could definitely win this one. I was really impressed with the Vikings in week 1, but I was also really impressed with the Eagles. And he did have 4 targets, Devonta Smith, so it's not like he didn't have a single target, and he was still out there in every single passing play. He was 100% running routes on every single drop back for Jalen Hurts. This is definitely a bounce back spot for Devonta Smith. I'm okay going Devonta Smith in this situation. I'm heating up a little bit. Let me take this sweatshirt off because it's getting hot as we get closer to week 2 kickoff here. But yeah, I think I'm okay going with Devonta Smith as like a complete dart throw. Again, I think Ingram's safer, but I like Devonta Smith's ceiling this week a lot. Hey, happy football Sunday. Happy football Sunday, man. This is the best day of the week. It's the best day of the week. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. I really do appreciate everyone that's tuned in. Again, we'll be live right up till kickoff. I know there's a lot of questions that I haven't gotten to yet. I'll do my best to get to all of them. Again, though, the WalterPicks app can help you out a lot with the start-sit decisions. How do you feel about Taysom Hill with Kamara out? I think I play it safe with Goddard instead of Hill. Yeah, I would still go Goddard over Hill. But yeah, this Alvin Kamara news definitely helps Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is better than Tony Jones, who's the backup running back to Mark Ingram. Taysom Hill might be better than Mark Ingram at this point in his career. I think his name was Tony Jones, right? Let me confirm. He was so bad last season. I know his last name is Jones. Wait 1 second. I thought it was not. Now I'm not seeing him. There's a lot of Joneses though. Let me pull up the depth chart 1 second. But yeah, I do think the Alvin Kamara news, it definitely helps Taysom Hill. And I'm starting Taysom Hill over Cole Kmet. I'm starting him over Irv Smith. I'm starting him over David Njoku in the tight end slot. I added Taysom Hill for $3 a fab in basically every single one of my leagues. I actually spent $30 on him in one league where I was really desperate for tight ends. But yeah, I'm definitely not feeling great about Mark Ingram. Yeah, it is Tony Jones. Yeah, Dwayne Washington might actually be ahead of Tony Jones. I know they signed Latavius Murray, but he's on the practice squad. He's not going to play this week. I would argue that Taysom Hill is a better option than Mark Ingram and Tony Jones. It's just purely running the ball. That definitely is going to help him a little bit. Like, we're going to see Taysom Hill get a couple carries again this week, and no other tight ends getting carries. Russell Gage or Damian Harris in full PPR, I like Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson this week, but I like Gage more. Julio Jones, he's a game time decision. Chris Godwin out. I think Russell Gage, too, he fits that Chris Godwin role. He fits that Antonio Brown role better than Julio Jones did. Julio Jones does. But Julio Jones looked good in week 1. I will give him that. But again, with a knee injury, he's a true game time decision. If Julio Jones is out, I think you got to go Gage in the PPR leagues. Jeff Wilson or Miles Sanders, please? Yeah, Michael. I had Miles Sanders on my do not draft list because Miles Sanders had no confidence in his own workload heading into the season. He literally said himself, don't draft me in fantasy football. But guys, guess what? He might not have had any confidence in his workload, but the workload's better than he expected. And it's better than what everyone else expected as well. Miles Sanders, we've known the talent is there for Miles Sanders for forever, really. Like, we've known Miles Sanders is very talented. He's been very talented for a very long time. He finally got a few goal line carries. Like, finally we see Miles Sanders get some goal line touches. He goes off in week 1. But I'm still starting him in week 2, I think, over Jeff Wilson. I'm not so sure exactly what the role is going to be for Jeff Wilson. Like, we know the 49ers are going to play. Let me talk about this 49ers game actually a little bit. I'm glad you brought up Jeff Wilson because I know there's going to be a lot of Jeff Wilson questions. I don't think Jeff Wilson's a must bench. He's not on my must bench list, but he could be a guy that really disappoints in week 2. I know a lot of people got him off the waiver wire, might have used a lot of their fab on him, used their waiver priorities on him. I think Tyrion Davis-Price, to me, he's the most intriguing guy in this backfield. And we've already heard Tyrion Davis-Price is a rookie. There's another rookie in this backfield as well, though. I do think that he is the most intriguing guy. And if Jeff Wilson starts slow, it sounds like they will play the hot hand. And we know Trey Lance will be very involved as well. So I think Tony Jones is a really low floor. And we also know Trey Lance doesn't throw to his running backs very often. So I'm okay going Miles Sanders. He's more talented, and he had a much better week 1. Zeke or Edmonds? Spencer, man, Zeke is in such a tough spot. Week 1, I definitely would have said Zeke. But this week, I'm okay going with Edmonds over Zeke. I'm okay panicking a little bit about Zeke. I would probably, this is close to the line, I think, for me with Zeke. But guys, the usage for Chase Edmonds, it was really encouraging in week 1. He wasn't the only running back that was out there, but he was the clear alpha running back. Exactly what we were hoping for from Chase Edmonds in week 1 is what we got. He had 12 carries. He did nothing with his carries, only 25 yards, but he also had 4 catches on 4 targets for another 40 yards, 65 yards, 4 catches. He goes over 10 points in PPR leagues without a touchdown. This is exactly what we were hoping for out of him, and he will score some touchdowns this season as well. So I'm okay going Edmonds over Zeke, but I don't feel great about it. We do know Zeke is going to still get probably more touches than Edmonds. So I don't feel great about Zeke over Edmonds, but I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Hey, Sam, should I start Hayden Hurst or Dawson Knox, full PPR? Yep, yet another tight end. That complete dud performance in week 1, Dawson Knox. I'm still starting Dawson Knox, though, in most situations that I have him in. If he's my only tight end, I'm definitely starting him. I'm starting him over Taysom Hill. I'm starting Dawson Knox over Hayden Hurst as well. Best app in the game. Thanks, man. Yeah, Liam, I really do appreciate that. And if you guys haven't checked out the WalterPicks app yet, definitely check out the WalterPicks app for free in the iOS and Android app stores. There is some premium versions of the app that do cost money. $10 a month is as low as the price starts. But you can do infinite start-sit comparisons for 100% completely free in the WalterPicks app. So if I don't get your start-sit comparison, you can literally just go download the app. It'll take you maybe 1 minute to get to the start-sit tool. And then you can just input the start-sit question if I don't get to it. PPR League, Marquise Brown, Brandon Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins. This one's not easy, man, because I want to start Brandon Cooks. I want to start Brandon Cooks this week. The usage from Brandon Cooks, week 1, was extremely encouraging. I think it's another tough matchup for Brandon Cooks, but it's nothing that he can't overcome in week 2. I do like Brandon Cooks. His usage was extremely, extremely encouraging in week 1. Yeah, so he goes up against the Denver Broncos this week. They did look like a pretty good defense, but I do think the Broncos offense is going to put up points in this game more than they did on Thursday night. Brandon Cooks, 12 targets in week 1, 132 air yards, was the 3rd most air yards in the league for Brandon Cooks in week 1. This is exactly what we thought we were going to get from Brandon Cooks in week 1. This is why he was one of our best ball favorites heading into the season. It's why we were drafting him in the 6th round, 5th round in fantasy drafts. He is a top 3 wide receiver in terms of air yards in week 1. I mean, you love to see it. You love to see it. So yeah, I think you got to start Brandon Cooks. He is the clear top receiver. And guys, Davis Mills, General Mills, he continues to impress. He has been the best deep passer in terms of pure accuracy. He's been the best deep passer in his draft class. He was number 4 deep deep passing completion percentage last season. Was Davis Mills. And then in week 1, he connects on a couple deep balls. Again, 15.2 fantasy points for Brandon Cooks in week 1. Yeah, I think you go Brandon Cooks. And these other guys are really tough to bench, though. I think I would go with CD and T. Higgins probably over Marquise Brown. I do think Marquise Brown has a higher ceiling than both guys. But I personally, I'm not benching T. Higgins. He's back. He's fully healthy. He's out of the concussion protocol. So, yeah, I think I would go with that. Let me pull up my picks against the spread again. We're live on TikTok and YouTube. And on YouTube, you can see a little bit more info. On TikTok, you can see the guys that I think you really must bench. We've added a few guys to this list on the YouTube live already. But I've talked to all of them. Swift is the only one. Deandre Swift's the only one that, like, you can still start him. He's the only guy on this list that I feel okay still starting. But he does have an ankle injury, and he could see limited touches because of that. And there's also always the chance of re-aggravation with these ankle injuries for running backs. But I'm pulling up my picks against the spread, which you can see on the YouTube live. And I want to talk through some of these games again. Probably the game that I'm most bullish on is the 49ers game. I think that the 49ers are being really slept on. I think Trey Lance is being really slept on. I think Brandon Ayuk at the bazooka is being really slept on. So I am starting Brandon Ayuk and Trey Lance in basically all my DraftKings lineups this week. Trey Lance, 13 carries in week 1. He threw the ball a lot still, despite the bad weather. I think that you can really attribute a lot of his lack of success in week 1, not all of it, but a lot of it to the weather. And I think he's going to do better in week 2. Paris Campbell startable with Colts receivers out. Yeah, he is startable. He's not startable in all situations. I think his over-under, though, is in the 40s. Like, he's expected to get around 40 receiving yards. I think that makes a lot of sense. He ran a lot of snaps out of the slot in week 1. I think that's where he's going to play in week 2. I do like Paris Campbell a lot. Again, Michael Pittman is out. I have Paris Campbell on a lot of my best ball teams, too. I was saying before the season, I said this before the season, that I thought this year's Rashad Penny was going to be Paris Campbell. I saw a lot of parallels between those two guys. Paris Campbell is a guy that he has not been able to stay healthy his entire career, similar to Rashad Penny in his first 3 years in the league. But he was extremely talented in college. He was also extremely talented in terms of his athletic profile, 99th percentile speed for Paris Campbell, similar to Rashad Penny, who's an insane athlete. And yeah, in week 1, guys, Paris Campbell, he had the 3rd most slot snaps in the league, 47 snaps out of the slot for Paris Campbell. He's probably going to run that back in week 2 without Michael Pittman, without Alec Pierce. So yeah, I do like Paris Campbell as a deeper wide receiver play. I don't think he's a top 30 wide receiver still, though. I think he's like closer to the top 50. So I do think he's startable in some scenarios. Let me talk about the Pats again really quickly, because this is going to be one of the few weeks I think I picked the Patriots to cover the spread, to win the game. You won't find a more pessimistic Pats fan than me. I don't think the Pats are a playoff team. I've been saying all offseason that I think there's a better chance that they come in last in their division than that they make the playoffs. And that's absolutely brutal for the Patriots. And I still think that's true. But the Steelers are not a team to be very scared of this season. Their offense is not an offense that can move the ball very well. Their offensive line is trash. Mitch Trubisky is a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. They have really good surrounding talent. I think Chase Claypool out of the slot is pretty scary for the Pats. Chase Claypool was top 5, by the way, in slot snaps in week 1. That's a pretty new development. A big slot receiver is pretty scary against the Pats. But Deontay Johnson, he continued to ball. But yeah, I'm not scared about the Steelers offense. Guys, the Steelers, again, they had 5 turnovers. They turned the Bengals over 5 times. The Bengals turned over the Steelers 0 times. And they still should have lost the game. And on average, over the last 10 years, the average margin of victory for a team that wins the turnover battle by 5 is like 18 points on average that team wins by. And the Steelers should have lost. They're not going to turn over the Patriots 5 times. They probably won't turn over any team 5 times again this season. That's an insane amount of turnovers. We almost never see that amount of turnovers. And they still almost lost. They still should have lost. They were an extra point away from losing. So I'm pretty down on the Steelers, more so than I'm down on the Pats. So yeah, I'm okay taking the Pats this week. Derek Carr, Russell Wilson. On the app, they are basically predicted the same. I would go Derek Carr personally over Russ this week. There's so much upside for Derek Carr in this matchup against the Cardinals. We saw the Cardinals get just completely torched. Obviously, it was the Chiefs. We can't expect Derek Carr to do quite as much as Mahomes did, but he could do something similar. I think the Cardinals secondary is really, 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 really bad. And the Russell Wilson also has a pretty good matchup against the Texans. But we also, it seemed like the Broncos, they're going to run the ball a lot when they're in the lead. And I don't feel great about that. So I think I would lean Derek Carr. I like both guys. I think I have them both in my top 10 quarterback rankings. Let me actually see. I have Russell Wilson actually one spot ahead Let me adjust this because actually, after thinking about this, I actually think I should have Derek Carr one spot ahead of Russell Wilson. It's obviously really close, though, super close. And both guys have really high ceilings this week. Here's my top 10 quarterbacks again. You can see that on the YouTube live. Bateman or Sutton PPR. Yeah, I really like Bateman this week, but I still think I would probably go Sutton over Bateman. I think his player prop line is much higher. I think we have him projected more in the WalterPicks app as well. Any concerns about Mike Evans working his way back through a calf injury? Yeah, of course. Of course, you got to be a little bit concerned about Mike Evans. He's been battling through these minor injuries. Feels like every single week. I'm not gonna overreact to the Marshawn Lattimore thing though. I very rarely overreact to some of this cornerback stuff because very few corners in the league actually shadow players the entire game. Most corners stick to their side. Most defenses actually in the NFL week 1, there's a really interesting trend. Most defenses in the NFL, it was like almost entirely zone. Like this is a zone league, not a man-to-man league, which makes me even more confident about not overreacting to some of this cornerback stuff. Because if defenses are running zone, you can really easily scheme around the matchups that you want because they're not really true matchups in zone like they are in man-to-man. I actually do think the Saints ran a little bit more man-to-man than some other defenses. But yeah, I'm not too scared about Lattimore versus Evans. I am more scared about the calf injury, though. The calf injury is definitely a real concern. I'm still starting Evans, though, because Chris Godwin's out. Julio Jones is on the wrong side of questionable. Like, that's all good news, I think, for Mike Evans and his target share. So I think you still got to start Mike Evans, but there's definitely some real concern that he could put up a dud. It's more reason that I like Russell Gage. Bucs head coach Todd Bowles says left tackle Donovan Smith will not play week 2 against the Saints. The Bucs line continues to lose bodies. Tristan Wirfs, he is expected to play, but he's questionable. He's the only starter from 2021 who's going to be suiting up for them in week 2. Definitely concerned. I think the Saints win this game, even without Alvin Kamara. There is a report, too, from one of the New Orleans beat reporters that Mark Ingram and Tony Jones are going to split the snaps in week 2. Guys, Tony Jones, he's complete dust. He is complete dust. I have zero confidence in Tony Jones. If there's any props out there on Tony Jones, I doubt there is. But if there is, I would smash those unders. They're probably really low. I'd still smash the under. Guys, remember last season? This happened last season. Bring us back to 2021. I think it was looks like it was week 12. Yeah, it was week 12. He was playing the Bills. Mark Ingram out. Alvin Kamara out. I think this might have actually been a COVID scenario for Tony Jones, where he was the only running back basically on the entire team. And what does he do? He gets 16 carries. He turned 16 carries into 27 yards. And he ran only one route. He had 0 targets. He had 2.7 points on 16 carries. That's Tony Jones that we're talking about. He's supposed to be splitting work with Mark Ingram. Again, I think if I'm the Saints, I'd run Taysom Hill back there before I ran Tony Jones back there. I think Mark Ingram will lead these backfield, though, in snaps and touches. I don't feel great about Mark Ingram either, though. He's definitely way past his prime. I feel much better about all the receivers in this game than I do Mark Ingram. J.K. Dobbins' knee will not play week 2 against the Dolphins. I feel like J.K. Dobbins owes Ian Rappaport an apology. I don't know if you guys remember this, but it was early in the preseason. Ian Rappaport reports that J.K. Dobbins is unlikely to play, or at least questionable to play in week 1. And J.K. Dobbins lashes out at Ian Rappaport saying, that's just straight up false. I'm definitely playing week 1. And now here we are. He hasn't played either of the first 2 weeks. I feel like he owes him an apology. Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is a guy that you just got to hold on to in fantasy. He's extremely talented when healthy, but we just don't know. We don't know when he's going to be back and fully healthy. But I'm not starting Kenyon Drake. I told you guys week 1, there were so many Mike Davis questions. Week 1, it was like 2021 all over again. It was the story that, guys, Mike Davis, he's clearly the top back, or at least the number 2 back on a run-heavy team. Maybe he will see enough touches to be relevant in fantasy. No, guys, do not start. Do not start Mike Davis. Mike Davis should be on the waiver wire literally everywhere. Shout out Mike Davis. I do like Mike Davis off the field, but on the field, fantasy-wise, I'm not starting Mike Davis, and I'm not starting Kenyon Drake either, because we know Lamar is going to be the lead rusher, I think, in this backfield. Swift, yeah, so Swift is the one guy on this list. Probably a lot of comments have been about Swift. Swift is injured. He has an ankle injury. It looks like he's going to play this week. I'm okay starting DeAndre Swift still. Honestly, if I could, I would redo the screenshot. I probably would take Swift out. But I do think in some scenarios, you got to consider benching DeAndre Swift, depending on who you have. Like, for example, I'm playing A.J. Dillon over DeAndre Swift this week because I'm scared of re-aggravation of the ankle injury, and I'm scared that they might limit his touches a little bit, which they have alluded to a tiny bit. So yeah, I'm a little bit scared of DeAndre Swift, but not enough to bench him in all situations. Again, he's the one guy on this list that, like, you can start. All these other guys, though, do not start. Do not start Chris Godwin. Do not start Alvin Kamara. Do not start Michael Pittman. Do not start George Kittle. Do not start Julio Jones. Do not start Tony Pollard. Do not start Cam Akers. Do not start Devin Duvernay. My favorite player prop of the day, though, it is Rashad Bateman, over 45.5 receiving yards. I think I did just tell someone to start Sutton over Bateman, but you guys got to understand too, Sutton's prop line is much, much higher than this. Let me pull up Sutton's line. I actually think Sutton's is 56.5. So he's projected 10 more yards by the player prop lines. I think that does mean something. I also think he has a better chance at a touchdown. So I'm okay going Sutton over Bateman, but I love this line for Bateman, man. He went over this last week on only 2 catches because he sees extremely deep targets. And that's great for props. So I do really like Bateman. He could beat this in 1 catch. His average depth of target was almost half this prop line. Like, I just don't think they're recognizing the usage of Rashad Bateman when they're setting this line. And I do think the Dolphins, too, are going to score a lot of points. Like, I think that the Ravens are going to have to throw the ball a little bit today. Julio Jones or Drake London, I would definitely go Drake London. You can see Julio Jones. He's on my do not start list this week. I'm a little bit nervous about that one. He's a game time decision, though. He might not even play. And we know Julio Jones, he could definitely re-aggravate his injury as well. He's a knee injury. He sounds like on the wrong side of questionable based on the latest report that I've read. So yeah, I would definitely not start Julio Jones. Kadarius Toney is expected to play in week 2. JJ Watt, by the way, expected to play, maybe albeit limited snaps in week 2. I'm not starting Kadarius Toney though in fantasy after he plays. I think he ran 7 routes or something in week 1, like absolutely horrible. T. Higgins expected to play week 2. He cleared the concussion protocol. He's full go, guys. Start T. Higgins. Start T. Higgins. Allen Lazard is expected to play in week 2. That'll be really interesting one to watch. Is he going to be the de facto number 1 receiver for the Packers, or are we going to see A.J. Dillon or Aaron Jones lead this team in receiving like they did in week 1? Russell Gage expected to play. George Kittle is not expected to play this week. A brutal start to the season for George Kittle, missing the first 2 games. I do think he'll be back. Like, it sounds like he was actually pretty close this week. I do think he'll be back next week, but it's pretty tough if you drafted George Kittle and now you're just getting zeros in the tight end column. Hopefully you have Taysom Hill to start out there this week. I do think Alvin Kamara being out does help Taysom Hill just slightly. We got A.J. Dillon, Travis Etienne, or A-Rob at flex. Yeah, Andrew, I'm not benching A.J. Dillon. I'm not benching A.J. Dillon this week. He's my number 10 running back in my running back rankings. I'm starting A.J. Dillon. He was the number 9 running back last week, and the Packers only scored 7 points. Like, that's all the analysis I feel like you need to do, really, with A.J. Dillon. And again, I said this early in the stream because I'm fully panicked about Naji Harris. I'm very scared about Naji Harris. DraftKings, please, good sir. Yeah, I'll do that right now. I'll pull up my DraftKings lineup. By the way, you got to understand the context of this lineup because you got to understand the types of contests you're entering on DraftKings and FanDuel. The types of contests you're entering is actually the most important thing to winning. Like, in also it should affect your strategy like drastically. This is a tournament lineup. This is a tournament lineup, a 20 entry max, like massive tournament lineup. So I'm taking some big risks. I'm trying to differentiate as much as possible. And that's why I'm starting with Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk the Bazooka in all my tournament lineups this week. I think Trey Lance is being slept on big time. But here's my tournament lineup. I am rocking with Kyle Pitts again. I'm nervous for Kyle Pitts, man. I drafted him as my most drafted best ball player this year. There's not a single player in fantasy I drafted more than Kyle Pitts. Obviously a huge dud. Week 1, he did still see, I think, 7 or 9 targets. In week 1, the air yards were okay in week 1, and he did get lined up against a lot of linebackers in week 1, which was good, but still really disappointing performance for Kyle Pitts in week 1. It's not the easiest matchup for him in week 2 against the Rams, but I do think he can bounce back. And I like the Kyle Pitts, Allen Robinson stack. I don't think that many people are going to be playing Allen Robinson in DraftKings and FanDuel this week after a really low performance in week 1. I think he bounces back, though. I think he's a clear bounce back candidate. I do like Allen Robinson a lot this week. Let's see. Darrell Henderson or Kareem Hunt. I think I would go Henderson over Hunt. Thoughts on the Gabe Davis injury? Yeah, Costello, thanks for bringing this up because when I was making my do not start list, Gabe Davis did come across the screen on the injury report. And we just don't know. There's such a lack of knowledge right now with this Gabe Davis injury that I'm not saying you have to bench him because if he's playing, you got to start Gabe Davis. So Gabe Davis is another guy I might be just taking a massive L on this season. Now, he was on my do not draft list. He looked great in week 1. He only saw 4 targets, but really high value targets, obviously. And we can expect more of that, I think, from Gabe Davis. I think he'll be more boom or bust than some people realize this season with how his usage looked. But there's going to be a lot of boom this week, this season, I mean, for Gabe Davis as well. He says 18.8 points in week 1. Yeah, so he picked up, I think it was a quad injury during like a walkthrough practice. I think it was. Let me pull up the Gabe Davis injury again. Let me just read you the latest on Gabe Davis. But since he plays on Monday night, I mean, that makes it such a more murky situation where we just won't know till tomorrow night. So Gabe Davis, Saturday injury report with an ankle issue. He's questionable for Monday Night Football against the Titans. He wasn't listed on the injury report Thursday or Friday. So he picks up an ankle injury in a limited walkthrough practice. I mean, I'm not going to overreact to this immediately. Like, I'm still holding out hope for Gabe Davis, but if you have Gabe Davis, I'd probably add Isaiah McKenzie or Jamison Elite Crowder just as insurance, because I do think Gabe Davis is going to play. But again, there's just a lack of knowledge around this whole situation because this was such a late injury, and we don't get another injury report from the Bills until tomorrow because they play Monday night. So yeah, I'm nervous about him, but I still think you trust him in your starting lineup, and you get either McKenzie or Crowder on your bench just in case. Chase, how's it going, man? Thanks for tuning into the live. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into the live. By the way, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. If you guys haven't checked out our app yet in the iOS and Android app store, check out the WalterPicks app. You can answer all your start-sit questions. You can do as many start-sit comparisons this year completely free. You can do as many. You can analyze as many trades too as you want for completely free. I'll pull up the wide receiver rankings in a second. I see someone in the TikTok live asking about DraftKings lineup too. Come to the YouTube live. I can pull it up on the screen on the YouTube live. Link to the YouTube live is right in the TikTok bio. You can also see my top 10 rankings, every single position on the YouTube live, which you cannot see on the TikTok live. So come to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. But I really do appreciate everyone that's tuned in right now. Let's answer this question for Chase really quickly. Brandon Cooks, Among Us St. Brown, Quadzilla, Darrell Henderson, and Robert Woods. Yeah, so these two guys, I think, Chase, in basically all situations, I don't think there's a question yet where I've told anyone not to start these guys. Among Us St. Brown has to be started. Guys, there's an insane run from Among Us St. Brown right now. He had another 8 catches in week 1, and he gets a really good matchup against Washington this week, who looked like not great. They look better than last season, I will say. Oh, God. Accidentally just backed out of the TikTok live. Let me fix that. He caught 8 of 12 targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown in week 1. If he gets another 8 catches today, he's going to be tied for the longest streak ever of 8 catches in a row. It's going to be him, Antonio Brown, Michael Thomas. End of list of players that have had 8+ catches in this many games in a row. It's going to be Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's going to be the list of guys that have this many games in a row with 8+ catches, dating back to last season, obviously, for Amon-Ra. Pretty elite list, obviously. So, yeah, I'm starting Among Us St. Brown 100%. I'm starting Quadzilla 100%. Again, he's my number 9 running back. From there, I think this was definitely between Brandon Cooks, Darrell Henderson. I'm not considering Robert Woods. I actually was pretty bullish on Robert Woods in best ball. That's not looking great. After week 1, Traylon Burks, Kyle Phillips actually led that team in week 1. They looked a lot better than Robert Woods in week 1. I think I'd go Brandon Cooks, though, over Darrell Henderson, over Robert Woods. Again, Brandon Cooks, he was number 3 in the NFL in week 1 in air yards. Number 3. This is exactly why we were drafting Brandon Cooks, where we drafted him. I think his ceiling is extremely high, and he's got a pretty good floor, too. He's the clear alpha receiver. He ran a route on every single Davis Mills drop back, and Davis Mills continues to impress, man. Davis Mills continues to impress, so I think that's going well for him as well. Don't bench Swift. Yeah, so let me address the Swift thing again, because on the TikTok live, I do have Swift as a must bench in the background. And again, let me pull my must bench players on the YouTube live, too, as I talk through this. And I will pull up the DraftKings lineup next on the YouTube live. So if you guys are interested in my DraftKings lineup, did cash last week. It didn't like fully smash, but it did cash in tournament. So I felt okay about that. Actually, I played, I think, around $100 on DraftKings. Last week, I made back like 95. So it wasn't a great week, but it's still not a huge L week either. So bench these players. You're benching Chris Godwin. He's not playing. You're benching Alvin Kamara. He's not playing. Michael Pittman, also not playing, so make sure he's on your bench. George Kittle, also not playing, so he has to be on your bench too. Julio Jones, he's on the wrong side of questionable. Even if he plays, though, I'm not starting him in fantasy football. Tony Pollard, he's playing, but he's playing behind a really suspect offensive line, and Cooper Rush is his starting quarterback. He also did not run as many routes, did not get as many targets as I was hoping for in week 1, so I'm not starting Tony Pollard in week 2. Cam Akers, complete dust. Don't put him in your starting line. Devin Duvernay, he had only 4 targets in week 1. He caught 2 touchdowns. That's not happening again in week 2. I'm benching Devin Duvernay. Mike Gesicki, I think he should be on the waiver wire. Don't start Mike Gesicki. Deandre Swift. You can start Deandre Swift in a lot of situations. He's the guy that's the most different on this list. I got to be honest. When I wrote this at around 6:30 a.m., he was more questionable than he was now to start this week. He does have an ankle injury, though. He was questionable this week. I'm a little bit nervous about that. I think you can start A.J. Dillon over him, for example. Like some of these other top 15 running backs, I would start over Swift. I'm not starting like Darrell Henderson over Swift, though. Like you still can start Swift in most situations. He did have a huge week 1. He's extremely talented. When healthy, he's a top 5 running back in fantasy. But there is the scary scenario where they limit his touches a little bit this week. Maybe he only sees 15 touches this week. And maybe Jamal Williams continues to steal some of that goal line work and some of the touchdowns from Deandre Swift. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about Deandre Swift, which is why he's on this list. But again, you can start Deandre Swift in most situations. Jalen Waddle or Swift at flex. Yeah, like in that situation, I'd go Jalen Waddle over Deandre Swift in a PPR league this week. The Ravens are without their top 4 corners this week. How are they going to stop Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill today? I don't see how they're going to do it. That's why I think Bateman, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews all have really big games this week too, because they're going to be trying to keep up with this Dolphins offense that looks really good in week 1. All right, let's get to the DraftKings lineup. Let me answer this question really quickly. Ayuk or the Bazooka or Elijah Moore? Yeah, someone asked this one earlier, Ryan. I like Ayuk more than Elijah Moore, but I really hope Elijah Moore bounces back. I was really disappointed with his usage in week 1. 459 Joe Flacco dropbacks, only 7 targets for Elijah Moore. I mean, it's just really disappointing. And hopefully that doesn't continue. We saw a stretch of dominance from Elijah Moore last season, but that was without Corey Davis in the lineup for most of it. And that was without, obviously, Garrett Wilson in the lineup and Breece Hall in the lineup. And even Michael Carter wasn't in the lineup for a lot of that. So I'm a little bit more concerned with Elijah Moore than I was heading into week 1. All right, my DraftKings lineup's up on the screen on YouTube. Waddle or Michael Thomas, that one's really tough. Seeing that one in the TikTok live. I think Waddle, I want to start Michael Thomas though, man. With no Alvin Kamara, I think all the Saints receivers get a bump. I'm okay going Michael Thomas, honestly, over Jalen Waddle. I think it's super close though. Definitely super close. And again, if I don't get to start say questions, go to the WalterPicks app, download it for completely free in the iOS and Android app store. And you can do infinite start-sit comparisons, custom to your league settings too. I see a lot of comments too in the start-sit questions in the TikTok live where you're not even giving me the custom scoring settings. Like what if it's PPR, that will affect my answer versus if it's non-PPR. And again, that's all settings you can input into the WalterPicks app. My DraftKings lineup. I'm starting Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk in all my DraftKings lineups. Again, these are tournament lineups. So I'm taking high risk, high reward bets here. In a cash lineup, I would play Trey Lance, but I wouldn't play Brandon Ayuk, I don't think, in cash. That means head-to-head contest. I'm starting Saquon and CMC though. This is why I love DraftKings, man. This is why I love daily fantasy, because I can make lineups and yeah, I can just start Saquon and CMC every week in these DraftKings contests. Saquon still not priced high enough. I don't think CMC is priced high enough either. Guys, week 1, I got CMC in one of my high stakes leagues. He gets outscored by Younghoe Koo in week 1 in this league. Kickers are the worst in fantasy. Younghoe Koo though is a guy that I did add in a few spots because he looked absolutely amazing in week 1. But I think CMC, we saw his floor in week 1. We did not see his ceiling. We saw his floor. It was actually the worst game that CMC has had, that he's played the entire game in the last 3 years. Like going all the way back to like 2019, 2018, since we've seen a game with CMC playing that much snaps and seeing that few fantasy points. Like he really wasn't that involved. He saw some of his least usage ever. But the comments from the coaching staff were very, very positive after the game, that they want to get him the ball more. And they're going to get him the ball more. So I like that out of CMC. It is, a couple hours away. We got a couple hours left on stream. We've been live for about an hour and a half. I do have my DraftKings lineup up on the screen right now. Julio Jones or Tyler Lockett. That one's really close, man. I mean, Tyler Lockett, I would probably go Lockett because he's healthy. Again, Julio Jones might not even play. He might not play today. He might play, though. He's truly questionable. He's a truly game time decision. Yeah, so again, we're not sure about Gabe Davis this week. He's questionable with an ankle injury that he picked up in a walkthrough practice somehow. I think he's going to play, but just in case, I would add Isaiah McKenzie or Jameson Crowder in case he's not going to play. Let's see if there's any other news to catch up on. Doesn't look like any real news. J.K. Dobbins is out. Swift or Patterson? I would go Swift over Patterson, I think. And again, I know I have Swift up here, but I think I would still go Swift over Patterson. Like, really the line for me is like A.J. Dillon. Like, I definitely play A.J. Dillon over Swift. I think I would play pretty much all my top 10 running backs. You can see my top 10 running backs scrolling across the bottom of the screen if you're on the YouTube live. And if you're watching live on TikTok, come to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. Pollard or Jordan Mason? I'm playing Pollard over Jordan Mason. Let's not get ridiculous here. Again, the backfield for Jeff Wilson, behind Jeff Wilson, it's Jeff Wilson, Jordan Mason, and Tyrion Davis-Price. I like Tyrion Davis-Price the most, honestly, of these 3 running backs. I think Jeff Wilson's going to lead the backfield in carries, though, but they did say that they're going to run with the hot hand, and I think that's a little encouraging for Tyrion Davis-Price, but I feel a little scared about all of them, honestly, this week. I'm most scared about Josh Mason? I'm saying his full name right. Jeff Wilson can be started, though, in a lot of situations. Kenyon or Ingram? I'm definitely playing Ingram over Kenyon Drake. I don't feel great about Kenyon Drake, man. Let me pull the numbers for Kenyon Drake, though. Maybe I'm sleeping on Kenyon Drake. just a little bit too much. Again, J.K. Dobbins is out again this week. Kenyon Drake is going to be splitting the backfield with Mike Davis, who we're not concerned about at all. Kenyon Drake had 11 carries, 31 yards. He had 1 catch, 15 yards. I mean, yeah, he had 5 points last week, guys. He had 5 points. And we know Lamar is gonna steal red zone touches. He only played about half the snaps. Yeah, I'm starting Ingram over Kenyon Drake. I want nothing to do with Kenyon Drake. Really nothing. Sam, Joe Mixon, A.J. Dillon, Javonte Williams, or Hunt, full PPR. Pick 2. Joe, you got to be starting Joe Mixon and Javonte Williams. And A.J. Dillon. You really got to start all 3. But I think you have to start Mixon and Javonte. I actually might have A.J. Dillon ahead of Joe Mixon. I'm not sure. In my running back, you can see my running backs rankings right at the bottom of the screen here. Let's see. Yeah, I have Javonte Williams at number 6. You got to start him. I have Aaron Jones at number 7, Joe Mixon at number 8, and then A.J. Dillon's right at number 9. You got to start all 3 of these guys. And then we got some defensive questions here. Bucks defense, or who should I go this week on the waiver wire? Broncos. Yeah, I have Broncos and Browns. I started all my drafts. At the end of my drafts, I took Broncos and Browns because the Browns had 4 really easy matchups to start the season. Broncos had really easy 2 matchups to start the season. I like both defenses again this week. I do like the Bengals defense this week too against Cooper Rush. Do I start Rashad Bateman or Marquise Brown? Yeah, the former Ravens receiver or the current Ravens receiver. I would go Marquise Brown over Bateman, but I do like both a lot this week. Let's look at some of these questions. Let's pick a good question here. Burrow or Kyler? That one's a good one. Definitely a little bit concerned, honestly, about Kyler Murray after week 1. I do have Joe Burrow 1 spot ahead in my quarterback rankings this week. It's obviously close. I do want to be starting guys. With rushing upside, and that Kyler Murray still checks that box. But I have him 1 spot behind Joe Burrow. I have him number 7 in my rankings. Burrow's number 6. Lance is number 8. Derek Carr's number 9. Wilson's number 10. Damian Pierce or Swift? Yeah, I'm going Swift still over Damian Pierce again. Swift is the one guy on this list that he really probably shouldn't be on this. Let me just put my head right over the Swift on the TikTok live. That'll be our solution. Again, Swift is dealing with an ankle injury. His floor is lower this week, but his ceiling's still really high, and it sounds like he's still probably going to get at least 15 touches. So you got to start Swift. I think you got to start Swift in most situations. Cooks or Sutton? Yeah. I'm not benching Cooks. I'm not benching Cooks this week. Again, he had the 3rd most air yards in the league in week 1. You can't bench Cooks. Who do I start? Stafford, Brady, Wentz, Lance. Pick 1. I really like Stafford this week, guys. I think Stafford's in a really big bounce back spot. And if you're playing in tournaments on DraftKings and FanDuel this week, I think you should strongly be considering Matthew Stafford. He didn't have a great week 1. The whole Rams offense looked sort of in shambles, but they played probably the best team in the league in week 1. In the Buffalo Bills, a really good defense that got better this offseason. And now he gets the Falcons, who we know their secondary is not good. They're 10-point favorites. He still threw the ball 41 times in week 1. I feel pretty good about Matthew Stafford this week, and I like stacking with Allen Robinson or Cooper Kupp, obviously. I have Matt Stafford as my number 5. Terry McLaurin, I'm assuming you meant, not McScoren. Oh, McScoren. McScoren, you didn't. That was not. I like this. I like this nickname. I'm gonna use this. Permission to use Terry McScoren. Terry McScoren, or Scary Terry. Obviously that's the OG nickname, but Terry McScoren, man, that's got some legs. That's got some real legs. I think that one might stick. Terry McScoren. Michael Thomas is the guy I would go with though over Terry McScoren. As much as I like the nickname for Terry McScoren, guys, Michael Thomas with no Alvin Kamara. I feel like you have to start him. I feel like you have to start Michael Thomas with no Alvin Kamara. And we said this in week 1 too. And I actually, if you guys recall last week on this live stream, I had a little bit of a change of heart with Michael Thomas leading into week 1, halfway, a week out from week 1. I was like, yeah, I think we want to see it from Michael Thomas first. He hadn't been practicing. But then when we got close to week 1, I was like, well, he's playing the Falcons. And who knows how many games we're going to get from Michael Thomas. We know he has a history of missing a lot of games over the last couple of years. So we're going to bench him when he's playing against the Falcons. We probably shouldn't do that. And that ended up being right. He scored 22 points. He was a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy in week 1. And I think that logic now applies basically every single game for the rest of the way. Guys, Michael Thomas, he's playing. He's healthy. Start Michael Thomas. We just saw it. We saw him on a field doing Michael Thomas things. The peripheral numbers, they weren't great. He only ran 30 routes. He wasn't out there for every drop back for Jameis Winston, but he did see, he only had a 60% snap share, but that second half was really promising. He caught 2 touchdowns, 5 catches, 57 yards. He could have done even a little bit more in week 1. And again, Alvin Kamara's out. And so that's just more targets, I think, Michael Thomas's way. So, yeah, I'm going Michael Thomas over Terry McScorin. Pick 2, Chase Edmonds, Jalen Waddle, Zeke. Yeah, I think I'd go with the first 2. I'm definitely starting Jalen Waddle, though. Definitely Jalen Waddle over Zeke and over Edmonds. Again, the Ravens, they're without their number 1, their number 2, their number 3, and their number 4 corner. I mean, it's absolutely, it feels like last season all over again for the Ravens all of a sudden. Their safeties are still good, and their safeties are healthy. But, yeah, this is not a great scenario for the Ravens against the Dolphins. I'm actually taking the Dolphins against the spread, but I do think the Ravens still win. I'm pretty heavy on Lamar and Bateman. Guys, Lamar Jackson hasn't lost a game in like a very long time. He was 8-0 before his injury last season. He crushes the Jets in week 1. He was extremely aggressive throwing the ball down the field too, which I think is a really good sign for Lamar. So yeah, I still think the Ravens win, but I'm definitely starting Waddle. I don't feel great about starting Edmonds and Waddle, I guess, on the same team. So maybe I'd go Zeke in this scenario. But if it was just Edmonds versus Zeke straight up, I feel a little bit better about Edmonds than Zeke with the Cooper Rush situation in the offensive line situation for the Cowboys. Travis Etienne, James Robinson, or Monty. Just read a report this morning that sounds like Etienne and J-Rob, they're going to continue to split the work for the most part. J-Rob looked better in week 1. Travis Etienne also dropped 2 touchdowns. Really, one of them was just overthrown, but he really should have scored 2 receiving touchdowns in week 1. In a PPR league, I feel like you kind of have to lean Etienne, but it's really close, man. I mean, it's really, really close. They're going to be splitting the work on the same team. Monty is an interesting option up against the Packers this week. Let me pull up the numbers for Monty. I'm actually interested to see because I know Khalil Herbert did get a decent amount of run in week 1, which was a little bit concerning for David Montgomery. David Montgomery, like we went into the season sort of knowing there's no way he could see the same workload as he saw the season before. Yeah, he only has 8 points in week 1, 17 carries though, but he turned 17 carries into 26 yards because the Bears' offensive line is so awful. He did see a few targets. He had 3 catches. He had 4 targets, which isn't bad. I think I would go Travis Etienne, though. I think I'd go Travis Etienne over David Montgomery. It's really close, honestly. It's really close between all these guys. Pick 3, DK, MT, Hunt, Deontay, PPR. DK Metcalf looked like the only guy you can trust, really, in the Seahawks offense. I have Alvin Kamara in one league. I'm playing Ramondre Stevenson over Rashad Penny in that league. Kenneth Walker, by the way, he's getting his first start of the season. Not a start, but he's getting his first run this season, this week. I'm very excited for Kenneth Walker. He's one of the rookie running backs I liked a lot. I think he will eat into Rashad Penny's workload a tiny bit, which is definitely a little bit concerning for Penny as well. But yeah, up against the 49ers, they're also big underdogs in that game. I'm okay going DK Metcalf, Michael Thomas, Deontay Johnson. Honestly, and in PPR leagues, I like leaning receivers. So yeah, I think I'll go the 3 receivers in this situation. You can see my quarterback rankings right at the bottom of the screen on the YouTube Live. And yeah, I'm starting Joe Burrow over Trey Lance. It's close. I do really like Trey Lance this week, but I'm starting Burrow over him. Why Tony Pollard? The offensive line, and I have Tony Pollard in most of my leagues. Like I'm taking a big L not starting Tony Pollard this week. And I'm still rooting for him. I have him in a lot of best ball leagues as well. But Tony Pollard, guys, he split the work with Zeke week 1, kind of what we were hoping for, but he didn't run as many vertical routes as they were saying all offseason. And that was a little disappointing. He goes under 20 receiving yards in week 1. That's a little concerning. And then the offensive line's looking really bad. And then Cooper Rush, on top of all of that, like Tony Pollard is a really, really low floor along with the whole offense for the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb's the only guy I think you really have to start. I still think you have to start CeeDee Lamb. With where you drafted CeeDee Lamb, with the target volume you saw week 1, I think you still have to start CeeDee Lamb. You're probably starting Dalton Schultz in most situations too, but I don't think you should start Tony Pollard this week with that scenario. Start 2, sit 1. Michael Thomas. I saw Michael Thomas, CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, I'm okay going Michael Thomas over CeeDee Lamb this week. Been here for an hour. Thanks, Flicky. Yeah, we've been live for a little over an hour and a half now, and we got a little over an hour and a half left in this live stream. So we've got plenty of time left. So I will get to as many questions as I can, and I really do appreciate if I don't get to your question. The best thing you could do is just go to the WalterPicks app, input your start-sit question into the WalterPicks app, and then you will get some help that way as well. I mean, you can do as many start-sit comparisons in the WalterPicks app for free. We got Derek Carr, Carson Wentz. Yeah, it's got to be Derek Carr. Again, you could see my my top 10 QB rankings. Derek Carr against the Cardinals, guys, he could easily be top 5. He could easily be the number 1 quarterback this week. Definitely possible. In the range of outcomes, I think, for Derek Carr this week. And then also Marquise Brown, Jalen Waddle, Michael Thomas, Darrell Henderson, pick 3. I'm starting Michael Thomas and Jalen Waddle 100%. I think the Henderson versus Marquise Brown one, for me, is really tough. Like, you got to ask yourself, are you shooting for like massive upside? Because if you are, you got to go Marquise Brown. I think his upside is nuclear. He could go bananas any given week without DeAndre Hopkins in the lineup. I don't think the Raiders secondary is that scary either. But Darrell Henderson's much, 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 much safer. He's a 10-point favorite against the Falcons, and Cam Akers is complete dust. Cam Akers looks like complete dust again in week 1, just like he did the entire playoffs last year. It's so tough for me to get behind Cam Akers. And so I think Henderson's much safer. If you're going for like, you want to lock in at least 10 points, you go with Darrell Henderson. If you're trying to lock in a chance at 25, maybe even 30 plus points, I think you go with Marquise Brown. So you got to ask yourself that question. But I definitely start Waddle and MT for sure. Judy or Cooks? I'm starting Cooks over Judy. You guys know I love Jerry Judy, but again, I think you have to start Brandon Cooks. I have Brandon Cooks in my top 10 wide receivers this week. I don't have Jerry Judy in my top 10 wide receivers this week. By the way, hashtag team Jerry Judy did get the dub over team Cortland Sutton in week 1. I was on team Jerry Judy all offseason. I'm not going to take that victory lap yet, obviously. But you got to like what we saw out of Jerry Judy still in week 1. That was very, 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 very encouraging. And yeah, guys, I do have Marquise Brown in my top 10 receivers. You probably should be starting Marquise Brown over Darrell Henderson. Just the ceiling is just so high. The ceiling's so high. It's not like there's no floor there either for Marquise Brown. So going back to that Marquise Brown, Darrell Henderson one, I think I'd go Marquise Brown. Paris Campbell. Yeah, Paris Campbell is a guy that's going to get some run this week. He actually got a lot of run last week. And Paris Campbell, before the season, I was actually really high on Paris Campbell. I was a little disappointed with how he did in week 1. Alec Pierce getting some end zone looks over Paris Campbell, but Alec Pierce is out in week 1. Michael Pittman is out in week 1. So yeah, you got to feel pretty good about Paris Campbell, who he ran the 3rd most slot routes in the league in week 1. And I think he's going to be top 3 in the league again. Slot snaps run. So I like that. I like that for Paris Campbell, but there's definitely a pretty low floor still with Campbell. But I was saying again before the season that you can not confidently, it was like a deep throw that Paris Campbell could be this year's Rashad Penny. And I was taking him in the last round in a lot of best ball leagues because of that. He has 99th percentile athleticism, so he's got that going for him, similar to Rashad Penny last season. All right, we do have a weather update, guys. We do have another weather update, and this really could be a big blow for me this week as I look through my DraftKings lineups. Looks like moderate rain and 15-mile-an-hour winds throughout the entire San Francisco and Seattle game today. Again, moderate rain, not down. It's not going to be as bad. It's not going to be as bad as the Bears game, but it's not going to be as good as most games weather-wise this week. 15-mile-an-hour winds. Again, that doesn't hit our 25-mile-an-hour wind threshold to be like super concerned, but it's also not 0 miles an hour. It's probably one of the windier games this week, plus mild rain, and the over-under is dropping. The total over-under is dropping in this 49ers Seahawks game. It's dropped from 44.5 all the way down to 40.5. So I feel much better. I feel much worse about my Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk, the bazooka stack all of a sudden. And yeah, I think you could be a little bit more skeptical about Trey Lance. Honestly, I'm going to move Trey Lance down my quarterback rankings right now, down to number 10. I had him at number 8 beforehand. Similar to what I said last week, though, guys, it's not like this necessarily is devastating for Trey Lance because, guys, he had 13 carries last week. 13 carries, that was the second most among quarterbacks. That's amazing. If you're having your quarterback run the second most times among all quarterbacks, he's going to have some massive, massive weeks. And that could actually end up being good for Trey Lance. But his passing, it's definitely not good for his passing, which is why the over-under is going down. So, yeah, bad news for Trey Lance this week, again, with the weather. Weatherman Sam coming back at you. Yo, Wentz, Brady, or Lance? Yeah, I'd still go Lance. I think I'm kind of scared for Brady. Guys, the offensive line for Tom Brady is really bad. We have Chris Godwin out. Julio Jones, game time decision. Russell Gage, questionable, but is going to play. Mike Evans, questionable, but is going to play. Leonard Fournette, questionable, but is going to play. Like, there's just so many paths to, like, just this offense being so thin so fast in this game. Like, any of these guys re-injure any of these injuries, and you got to be really, really, really concerned all of a sudden for Brady. So, yeah, I'm okay going Lance over Brady. I would go Lance over Wentz as well. I know Wentz popped off last week. He was the number 3 quarterback in fantasy last week. He has a pretty good matchup this week, too. I'd go Drake London over Kenyon Drake. The battle of the Drakes here. I'm going Drake London. Drake London looked really good in week 1, really promising week 1 performance. He led all rookie receivers in yards, which is what we expected from him really this season. So that's definitely good. So it sounds like Alvin Kamara is for sure out. J.K. Dobbins warming up in the field, but he's out. No, like immediate news coming that I'm seeing right now. Why bench Swift? Yeah, so Swift is the one guy that he probably shouldn't be on this list. You should start Swift in most situations. But I did want to bring up Swift on this live stream, which is why I did put him on this list. I did make this list at 6:30 a.m. this morning, so this list came out 5.5 hours ago. But DeAndre Swift, he is battling an ankle injury. He is questionable this week. There's a chance they limit his touches a little bit more, which is definitely concerning. But it's not concerning enough to not start. Swift, who was an absolute beast in week 1, is going to be an absolute beast when healthy this season. So, yeah, Swift's the one guy on this list that, you should probably start. But I would start A.J. Dillon over him. I think you could even consider a guy like Darrell Henderson maybe over him. But, yeah, in most situations, I think you got to start Swift. Taysom Hill. Play Taysom Hill. Or I don't know if you're talking about Taysom Hill or Tyreek Hill. You're obviously starting Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is a top 5 receiver for me this week against the Ravens without basically their entire cornerback room. Again, I have my receivers going across the board right now. Yeah, I have Tyreek Hill, number 4 receiver. I have Tyreek Hill ahead of Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs this week, and for good reason. Again, the Ravens have none of their corners are playing. Tyreek Hill looked amazing in week 1 in terms of his pure volume. We know Tyreek Hill is going to get a lot of touches this week as well, and he's going to get deep touches too. Kylo, good morning, man. Happy football Sunday. Hope all is well. Thanks, man. I appreciate the positivity. All is very well for me. I'm very excited for week 2, and I'm very excited for the Patriots to hopefully get their first win. And I'm one of the most pessimistic Pats fans in the world, but I think they do win this week, and I do actually think they cover the spread. 3 points against the spread too. You can see all my picks against the spread on the YouTube live. Why Julio and Tony? So Julio's game time decision. He's trending towards not playing. And Tony Pollard is a guy that he's running behind a bottom 10 offensive line in the league with a bottom 5 quarterback starting, and he's not the starting running back on the team. So I'm a little bit more concerned about Tony Pollard. And I have a ton of Tony Pollard. I drafted Tony Pollard in way too many leagues. But yeah, it's just trending so down for the Cowboys after week 1 with the injuries on the O-line, with the injury to Dak. It's so tough to trust Tony Pollard. Devin Duvernay. I'm seeing a lot of Devin Duvernay questions, guys. I know he had a good fantasy day in week 1, but he had 4 targets. He had 4 targets in week 1. He scored 2 touchdowns. That's not happening again for Devin Duvernay. Maybe all season. He might not score multiple touchdowns all season again. So you don't trust Devin Duvernay. I'm seeing a lot of Gabe Davis questions too. He's questionable. I think he's going to play, but we just don't have that much info on it because he's playing Monday night. So we're not going to get that injury report till tomorrow night. So I'm keeping Gabe Davis in my lineups, but I'm also going and adding Isaiah McKenzie or Jameson Lee Crowder just as insurance, just in case, because he picked up this ankle injury on Friday during a walkthrough practice. Maybe it was even yesterday that he picked it up. So yeah. Do I start Kittle or Taysom Hill? Kittle's not playing. It doesn't look like Kittle's playing. So do not start George Kittle. He was questionable. I don't know if he's been confirmed out officially yet, but it does seem like that's where it's heading. Spinelli, what's going on, man? Yo, T. Higgins or Robbie Anderson? Yo, it's got to be T. Higgins over Robbie Anderson. He cleared concussion protocol. Hey, Robbie Anderson definitely was a really strong week 1 from him. But yeah, I'm starting T. Higgins over him. Guys, if you're watching live on TikTok, make sure you hit that like button. They added a like button to TikTok. It actually does help the stream a lot. You can just tap the screen right on TikTok. And if you're watching live on YouTube, you get a little bit more info on the YouTube live, which you can find right in the TikTok bio. My top 10 rankings, every position, my picks against the spread, my favorite prop pick of the week, and my DraftKings lineup, all on the screen throughout the live on the YouTube live. Let me pull up my DraftKings lineup again, by the way. I might have to tinker with this. Again, with this weather report from the 49ers game, it's supposed to be sustained 15-mile-an-hour winds and light rain throughout the entire game. The over-under is dropping steadily. It's gone from 45.5 to 40.5 for the 49ers Seahawks game. I still think Trey Lance has a really high ceiling. I moved him down in my rankings to number 10 from number 8, though, off this news. And I'm definitely a little bit more worried about Brandon Ayuk, the bazooka, in this game. This could just mean more carries again for Trey Lance. Again, he had 13 carries, 13 rushing attempts in week 1. That's an amazing, amazing, amazing sign for Trey Lance this season. Been here for a while. Adam, thanks, man. A-Rob or Judy? Non-PPR. Yeah, non-PPR definitely affects this question a lot. I'm okay going A-Rob over Judy. Let me actually see. Judy's over under is 57.5. Robinson over under is 48 point. Yeah, I think I'd go Judy. I think I'd go Judy over A-Rob. Taysom Hill. Here we are. Guys, here we are. It's week 2. It's week 2. And we're getting this question in the YouTube live. And I think I actually saw a similar question in the TikTok live. A lot of Taysom Hill questions are out there. But this question is Taysom Hill or Kyle Pitts, man. And you got to be starting Kyle Pitts. You have to start Kyle Pitts. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about week 1 for Kyle Pitts. It was brutal. I have Kyle Pitts on way too many teams. So many teams. Because I went into this season knowing that it was only a matter of time until Kyle Pitts is in the conversation as the top tight end in the entire league. Only a matter of time. He checks so many boxes. He was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. We've never seen that in our lifetimes in the NFL for a tight end. He is a 99th percentile size-adjusted athlete. The dude's 6'6", 6'4". He's basically an elite wide receiver playing tight end. But then he also goes out and he has one of the best rookie tight end seasons of all time. He averages 60 yards a game in his rookie season. That's something we haven't seen since the 1900s. At the tight end position, averaging 60 yards per game as a rookie. Historically, the hardest position in the NFL in your rookie year is tight end. Year 2 and year 3 is where we really see these tight ends break out. He sees 9 targets in week 1. He only has 2 catches. You got to start Kyle Pitts, guys. I'm sorry. He could be the number 1 tight end any given week still. So you're starting Kyle Pitts. It's still not a great matchup for him. But going back to the Taysom Hill side of this question, there is some scenarios where you're starting Taysom Hill. I added Taysom Hill in a gross amount of leagues because how gross the tight end position is. I'm starting Taysom Hill over Taysom Hill over Cole Kmet. I'm starting Taysom Hill over Irv Smith. I'm starting Taysom Hill over George Kittle, who's not supposed to play today. Really the line for me is like Dalton Schultz, TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert. Like these guys, I'm still starting over Taysom Hill. But with no Alvin Kamara, I think we definitely could see Taysom Hill get a few more carries this week. And again, like no other tight ends are getting carries inside the red zone other than Taysom Hill. That gives him some intriguing ceiling, I think. But again, I'm not starting him over like any of these top 6 tight ends. Because again, like outside the top 6 tight ends, this is the whole story for Taysom Hill too, is like outside the top 6 tight ends, basically any tight end could score 0 points. Same thing for Taysom Hill. He could score 0 points. Absolutely, he could score 0 points. But so could all the other guys. So like you might as well just swing for the ceiling with Taysom Hill and hope he gets a red zone carry. Like, I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, with these tight ends outside the top 6, let me pull my tight end rankings again on the YouTube live. Outside the top 6, like tight ends, like you're really just praying that your tight end falls into the end zone. And if he does, he's probably going to be a top 10 tight end in fantasy. Like we saw this last week. O.J. Howard scores 2 touchdowns. He was the number 2 tight end in fantasy in week 1. We saw a few other really weird names in the top 10 tight end list because they just happen to fall in the end zone. So yeah, like really after the top 6 tight ends, I'm okay playing Taysom Hill. All right, let's get to this question. Love the app. Thanks, man. Really do appreciate you checking out the WalterPicks app, which also can answer all the start-sit questions we're seeing in the comments right now. Custom to your league settings too. You can also sync your league this season to the WalterPicks app. ESPN, Yahoo, or Sleeper League, you can sync right to the WalterPicks app this season. Custom insights, custom to your situation. The reason I love this so much too in the WalterPicks app is this is one of the hardest things, one of the most frustrating things for me as a fantasy football analyst, as a fantasy football content creator, is it's so hard sometimes to account for everyone's different league settings, everyone's different roster settings, custom scoring settings, custom league situations. Everyone's in a different type of situation. Like I just told someone that they should probably bench Chase Edmonds because they're also playing Jalen Waddle. Like I wouldn't have known that unless they told me. But the WalterPicks app knows all that information because you can sync your league right to the app. So it really is, I think, a really valuable resource to use. And I will try to get to as many start-sit questions, obviously, on this stream as well. All right, A-Rob, Dillon, Higgins, Waddle, Sutton. Thank you. Yeah, all 3 of these guys that you're going to be playing here are really good options. I think you have to start, though, these middle 3. I think I would go Dillon, Higgins, Waddle. I think these guys are the highest ceiling, highest floor options. I think that those are the 3 that I would go with. All right, let's go back to some of these comments. I'm seeing a Henderson, Monty, Zeke question. Honestly, I think I would rank them maybe in that order. I'm pretty nervous about Zeke, man. I'm pretty nervous about Tony Pollard. Curtis Samuel or Christian Kirk full PPR. Yeah, I'm definitely playing Kirk over Curtis Samuel. Let's not like break the bank for Curtis Samuel this week. I know it was a really encouraging week 1. I actually have him in some best ball leagues that I drafted like very early in the offseason. He had 11 targets, 4 carries week 1. Like that's pretty encouraging, but I'm definitely starting Christian Kirk over him, who also had a really encouraging week 1. Really encouraging week 1 for Christian Kirk, just like we expected. And again, this is the classic thing where the real NFL analysis the real football analysis sometimes seeps into fantasy analysis, wrongfully so. Yeah, Christian Kirk was really overpaid. It was a bad contract this offseason. But he's the clear wide receiver 1 on a team that's going to throw the ball a ton. He had 12 targets in week 1, 117 yards. What else do we need to see from Christian Kirk, guys? He didn't even score a touchdown. He still finished top 20 receiver in week 1. Walter did cash that prop pretty easily in week 1. He had a 31% target share in week 1. If that stays that high, guys, I mean, Christian Kirk's going to be an absolute steal in fantasy this season. You got to be starting Christian Kirk, I think, over Curtis Samuel. Tom Brady or Carson Wentz. I'd go Brady over Wentz. Again, I'm nervous about Brady. Offensive line is really shaky. They lost another offensive lineman this morning to the injury report. Tristan Wirfs, I think, is going, but he's questionable. We have Chris Godwin out, but I still think Brady's a little bit safer than Carson Wentz. We got a question here in the YouTube live. Dillon or Swift? Yeah, this is the line for me with Swift. I'll get to this YouTube question in a second. Again, we're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. I do on the TikTok live. If you're watching live on only YouTube, on the TikTok live, I just have a screenshot behind me that's just all the guys I think you need to bench. And the last guy on the list is Deandre Swift, where I've said it multiple times on this live, you probably should start Swift in most situations. Again, I made this list of the do not start list very early this morning, where Swift was more questionable just to play than he is now. But he does have an ankle injury. And so I am starting AJ Dillon over DeAndre Swift. I am starting Javonte Williams over Devonta Smith. I am starting Aaron Jones over Devonta Smith. Over DeAndre Swift and Devonta Smith. But yeah, I'm not feeling like so low on DeAndre Swift that I wouldn't start him altogether. I would start JT, Saquon Barkley, CMC, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, AJ Dillon, and Leonard Fournette. I would start all those guys over DeAndre Swift because of the injury. But other than that, I think you kind of have to start DeAndre Swift. All right, let's get back to this question on YouTube Live. ETN, Alan Lazard, Curtis Samuel, Darnell Mooney, Paris Campbell. Thoughts on Dawson Knox, Lance, or Wentz? A lot of questions snuck in here. Yeah, so if you're starting one of these guys, I think it has to be Darnell Mooney against the Packers. Justin Jefferson just went off against this Packers team. Obviously, Mooney's not even close to the same level as Justin Jefferson, but he is the very clear wide receiver 1 for the Bears. I think you can discount his poor week 1 largely to the weather. He only ran 15 routes. Guys, he only ran 15 routes in week 1. And part of the reason we liked Darnell Mooney so much going into the season is we thought he was going to run an insane amount of routes, and he did run a route on every single Justin Fields drop back in week 1. And he's going to drop back way more in a game that they're going to be losing. And a game that, isn't going to be horrible weather. Like it was rainy and windy in week 1 for Darnell Mooney. So yeah, I'm definitely starting Mooney over all of these guys. I'm not starting Alan Lazard this week. I think we got to see it from Lazard this week, unless you're in a really dire situation. I would start Paris Campbell maybe. I would definitely start Travis Etienne over Lazard. Paris Campbell is, I think, in consideration. Thoughts on Dawson Knox? Yeah, I'm not starting Taysom Hill over Dawson Knox. Those are my thoughts on him. I don't know if I had him in my top 10. But, he's in the best offense in the league. I know he had a really bad week 1. But at least and again, the whole thing with the tight ends is you just got to hope they fall in the end zone. You're just praying your tight end falls in the end zone. And if they do, they're a top 10 tight end in fantasy that week. That's how bleak the tight end position is. And I think Dawson Knox, he has a pretty good chance to fall in the end zone any given week because he's playing with Josh Allen. And I know he didn't in week 1. He only had 1 catch, I think, in week 1. But yeah, I'm starting Knox in most scenarios. Yeah, so I'll see a lot of Swift questions again. Yeah, DeAndre Swift is a guy that you should start. You should start him in most scenarios. I'm not starting any of the top 10 running backs I have over him. He does have an ankle injury. He could be a little bit more limited. Do we like Marquise Brown today? Yeah, we like Marquise Brown. Why Julio? You're not starting Julio Jones because he's a game time decision and he's trending towards not playing. So that's pretty concerning. Taysom Hill or Robbie Anderson at flex. Again, I'm not starting tight ends over running backs and receivers. Tight ends already so tough. You don't need to make it even tougher by starting 2 of them. I like Taysom Hill over some of the bleak tight ends, but I'm not starting him over Robbie Anderson, who had a pretty encouraging start to the season. All right. Let's go back game through game. Again, I will get back to some of the start-sit questions momentarily as well. But I do want to go through these games. And I also do want to give one more shout that this 49ers Seahawks game is looking like the worst weather of the day. Weatherman Sam coming back on this live, telling you that Trey Lance is in another tough weather game. 15-mile-an-hour winds. And it's supposed to be light rain throughout the entire game. It is something to monitor. I did bump Trey Lance down from number 8 to number 10 in my quarterback rankings. I think I'm still probably ahead on Trey Lance compared to most other people's rankings because he ran the ball 13 times in week 1. So this might not be the worst thing for Trey Lance, but it's definitely a little concerning for Brandon Ayuka, the bazooka, who I think was in a really good spot until this weather news came out. A.J. Dillon or Marquise Brown. Yeah, I have A.J. Dillon as my number 9 running back, and I have Marquise Brown as my number 9 wide receiver. So you gotta ask yourself, do you want the floor or do you want the ceiling? The ceiling is with Marquise Brown. There's really not many players with a higher ceiling than Marquise Brown. But there's also a really safe floor, I think, with A.J. Dillon against the Bears. Again, the only reason Deandre Swift is on this list is because he was questionable with an ankle injury this morning. But it looks like he's going to play. He might be on a slightly limited snap count. But in most scenarios, you should be starting Deandre Swift. You should be starting Deandre Swift. You're starting Lance and Ayuk in DraftKings. I think I'm going to take Ayuk out of that lineup, which I'm a little disappointed about. I got to think about this a little bit more, and I'll probably wrap up the stream about 30 minutes before kickoff and do some very serious thinking about this because I'm being very transparent about what I'm doing on DraftKings every single week with all of you that are kind enough to tune into this live stream. Last week I got 95% of my cash back last week, and I'm playing in like high entry tournaments where you have a really, really low chance of winning anything. But if you do run right, you can win literally $1 million first place prize. Those are the tournaments I'm playing. I like chasing the top prizes, but that also means you're going to lose a lot. Like you could lose all season in these tournaments easily. So I was okay getting 95% of my cash back in week 1 with the Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk stacks. But this week I went with a lot of Lance and Ayuk stacks. I maxed under the $3.20 entry max tournament. I think it was like 100K to first in that tournament. And in almost all of them, I have Lance. In a lot of the lineups with Lance, I have Ayuk. And with the rain and the wind, he might be even more low owned, which I like in these tournaments. So you got to have guys that other people aren't starting that go off to win these tournaments. Like that is the game. The game is to play the low owned guys that go off. I think Allen Robinson fits that bill pretty well this week. I think Kyle Pitts fits that bill pretty well this week. I think Ayuk fits the bill, but again, with the rain and the wind, I think I will be taking him out of some lineups. I'm not very happy about that news. Morning, Sam. Pick 2: Sutton, MT, T. Higgins, Bateman, or DK. Yeah, I think go with the middle 2 here. Again, I'm not benching T. Higgins, and I'm not benching Michael Thomas. I think you got to start both those guys. London or Thielen. This one's tough. I think this one's pretty tough. Adam Thielen. I think he had a pretty disappointing week 1. Let me pull up the actual stat line for Thielen again in week 1. But I don't feel great about him. Obviously, Justin Jefferson just had like a monster day, and that's going to happen. Yeah, he had 3 catches, 36 yards, no touchdowns for Adam Thielen. I do think Adam Thielen, though, he did play 93% of the snaps. He still ran 30 routes. I don't hate Adam Thielen. This week, he has a decent matchup against the Eagles, who I think will do a better job against Justin Jefferson than the Packers did. I think Thielen has a pretty good chance at a TD, but I do really like Drake London, and I think London looked really good in week 1. Schultz or Taysom Hill PPR? I'm going Schultz over Taysom Hill. Yeah, so to answer your question firmly, though, I'm okay going with Drake London over Adam Thielen. I actually do think I have Drake London. Yeah, I have Drake London projected for around 12 points, Thielen for around 11 points. So it's really close. Lance or Carr this week? Yeah, it's Carr. It's got to be Derek Carr. With the news about the rain and the wind in the 49ers game, go with Derek Carr. Guys, Derek Carr is maybe the best matchup in the NFL this week. I mean, the Cardinals look so bad in the secondary in week 1. I know they played against the Chiefs, so it's hard to look good against the Chiefs. But yeah, I'm going with Carr, I think, over Lance. Yeah, so Dave, let me pull up my DraftKings lineup again. And again, the one thing I would say about this lineup is I'm probably taking Brandon Ayuk the Bazooka out of this lineup. I'm not happy about that because I felt like I was getting some pretty good differentiation in this tournament lineup, playing Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok, you can see my DraftKings lineup right on the YouTube live screen. Link to the YouTube is right in the TikTok bio. But yeah, I think I'm going to swap Ayuk out. I got to see for who around that price range. I'll probably do that after the stream, not during the stream. But this is my DraftKings lineup I'm rocking with. Obviously, I wouldn't copy it exactly, but I do think Trey Lance is still being slept on this week, and he's going to be super low owned. He's going to be probably sub 5% rostered on DraftKings, and I really like his potential to be a top 3 quarterback this week. I think he still has it in his range of outcomes. Again, he ran the ball 13 times in week 1. He breaks a couple big runs, and he gets a couple rushing touchdowns, and he's probably top 5 quarterback in fantasy. That's just how the scoring works. Is T. Higgins playing? T. Higgins is playing. He cleared the concussion protocol. He's playing. And you're starting him in fantasy when he's playing. So yeah, it does look like T. Higgins is playing. I don't think that's like officially official, but it's like as official. It's official enough for me to be confident that yeah, he's playing. By the way, Kadarius Toney, calf, he is active in week 2 against the Panthers. I think this Kadarius Toney thing is going to end eventually. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but I think there's going to be a week where Kadarius Toney just pops off, like completely pops off. He clearly has the talent to pop off. He's, to me, for those of you old enough to remember, I think he's Percy Harvin 2.0. Like Percy Harvin was so talented with the ball in his hands. He reminds me so much of Percy Harvin. I think it's the perfect comparison because it really reminds me of the injury stuff too with Percy Harvin. With Percy Harvin, he was never able to stay on the field. He was so talented. His whole career really was cut short by these injuries. And yeah, Kadarius Toney further injures his calf this week, but he is playing. He is playing, and I actually think, let me actually see. I think someone dropped him in one of my high-stakes leagues. Let me see if I actually got him. I think I put in a waiver request. Let me see. Because I'm pretty excited about Kadarius Toney at some point this season doing something. I don't think it's going to be this week. And I did. I got him basically for free off the waiver wire. I absolutely love to see that in a high-stakes 14-team league, someone panicking and dropping Kadarius Toney. I would not drop Kadarius Toney. I certainly wouldn't start him this week, though. Mark Ingram, Breece Hall, or James Robinson. I think I would go Robinson, Breece Hall, then Mark Ingram. I don't feel good about Mark Ingram this week. I think you can start him in a pinch. He's going to be splitting carries with Tony Jones. I think Taysom Hill probably going to get some carries again this week too. But it's really the receivers that I feel good about on the Saints team. I actually think the Saints beat the Bucs today, by the way. I have them against the spread. I think they're probably my favorite underdog play this week. The Bucs offensive line looking very, very suspect with multiple starters out. They are not a very deep offensive line. Chris Godwin out. Julio Jones leaning towards being out. He's questionable. Game time decision. Russell Gage questionable. He's probably going to play. Mike Evans questionable. He's probably going to play. Leonard Fournette questionable. He's probably going to play. I mean, there's so many injuries stacking up for the Bucs that won't be shocking if a few of these guys that are playing end up not playing as much or as good as we think with these injuries. And the Saints, meanwhile, they're pretty healthy and they look pretty good in week 1. I think their defense could cause some problems for the Bucs offense too. So it'll be interesting to see how that game shakes out. But yeah, I do like that as an upset game. I pull my picks against the spread again one more time. Again, we went exactly 50%, 8 out of 16 last week against the spread. I am taking the Pats, guys. I am taking the Pats. What's up, Sam? How you doing? Pick 2, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, Higgins, or Hollywood. I'm doing fantastic, man, because it's Sunday morning. It is the best day of the week, and we're literally only like an hour away. We got an hour left of this stream, and then we get to watch football literally all day. It's the best day. It's by far the best day of the week. Yeah, I would probably go T. Higgins and Hollywood Brown out of these guys. I like DJ Moore. I like all 3 of these receivers though way more than Curtis Samuel. I don't think Curtis Samuel should be in consideration in this question. I would go T. Higgins and Hollywood Brown though for sure. Someone's asking about my favorite prop. Yeah, my favorite prop of the day. I honestly think this is a smash. Like Rashad Bateman over 45.5 yards. He cleared this last week with only 2 catches, and this is exactly why this prop is so. There's so much value on this prop with Rashad Bateman over 45.5 receiving yards. His average depth of target was 20 yards down the field. Like he gets 1 catch, and he's already halfway to his prop. Like and he could easily clear his prop in 1 play. That's how deep his targets are. And I also think the Dolphins are going to put up a lot of points this week against a Ravens team without most of their corners. And that could mean more passing for Lamar. And that's obviously great news for Rashad Bateman. I think this line should be like closer to 60, and they have it at 45.5 on Prize Picks. I would smash that. I really like the Rashad Bateman pick this week. Bateman or Mooney, really close one. Definitely really similar situations. I feel a little bit better about Bateman's ceiling and a little bit better about Mooney's floor. The props are really close together. Bateman's props 45.5. Mooney's props 48.5. That's a slight edge towards Mooney. I do really like Mooney against the Packers too. Like it's really close. Personally, I'm leaning Bateman because I really liked the volume in the deep targets he saw, but we just don't really know yet from Mooney because of the weather in week 1. I'm seeing a Sutton or a Amon-Ra St. Brown. Guys, you can't bench Among Us. Do not bench Among Us St. Brown. I mean, you can't bench him until this streak ends. He's had, 8 consecutive games or something ridiculous like that with 8+ catches? Let me pull up the Among Us St. Brown thing because, guys, it's pretty astonishing how dominant Among Us St. Brown has been for so long in so many games in a row. He's on base, and he also gets Washington this week. Not a good secondary. He had 12 targets, 8 catches last week. But if you go even back to last season, guys, he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games for Amon-Ra St. Brown with at least 8 catches. Put him in your starting lineup. He had over 20 points in his last 5 games in fantasy. 5 straight games, over 20 points. And by the way, if he goes over 8 or more catches today, he'll be the only wide receiver to do that in this many games in a row, other than Michael Thomas and Antonio Brown. The list of guys that will have 9 straight games or 8 straight games with 8+ catches, it'll be Michael Thomas in his prime, Antonio Brown in his prime, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, you just don't do that unless you're very, very, very good. And this is exactly why we were drafting Amon-Ra this season, because you don't do what he did. And this is stretching back to his rookie season, too. We're comparing his rookie season in the beginning of his second season to Michael Thomas and Antonio Brown's prime. I mean, that's absolutely insane and super impressive from Amon-Ra St. Brown. And there's so much hate this offseason. Oh, but last season he was doing it without DeAndre Swift. Last season he was doing it without TJ Hawkinson. Last season he was doing it without DJ Chark. By the way, DJ Chark, very interesting flex play. I'm playing him in some DraftKings lineups this week. His air yards looked really promising in week 1. I liked his usage a lot. DJ Chark had the 5th most air yards in the NFL, guys, in week 1. That's DJ Chark. Very, very, very encouraging, his usage. Like the types of, he had 3 deep targets. I think he caught 1 of them. But yeah, I think DJ Chark has really, really high ceiling this week in a game against Washington. Again, I like targeting Washington secondary. They were really bad last season. They were better in week 1, but still not great in week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So yeah, I'm starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. Definitely, 100%. You got to be starting Amon-Ra St. Brown. All right, let's get to some of the questions. Again, Penny, Drake, or Jarvis at flex. I'm not starting Penny. I'm not starting Drake. I think you go Jarvis. Again, I mean, Jarvis had a really good week 1, over 100 yards week 1. And Alvin Kamara is out. I think that's good news for all of the pass catchers for the Saints. Christian Kirk or Paris Campbell, you got to start Christian Kirk. You have to start Christian Kirk. Aaron Jones or Naji. Yeah, I'm fully panicked. I'm fully I'll answer this question in a second, Yash, but I'm fully panicked about Naji Harris. I made my first trade of the season this week. By the way, I posted a YouTube video. I'll be doing this every single week on YouTube of 10 guys I'm either buying or selling in trades heading into the next week based on this previous week. And one of the guys I'm selling and that I was fully panicked about was Naji Harris. He re-injures his same foot. It's the same foot. It couldn't have even been the other foot. It's the same foot that he injured in preseason. He's not on the injury report this week. Obviously, that's a good sign, but he didn't play like the whole 4th quarter in week 1 because of the same foot injury. And the offensive line, guys, look so bad for the Steelers. They look like a bottom 3 offensive line in the NFL. And we've known since Naji entered the league, he has not been able to make explosive plays on his own. He's not an explosive playmaker. He's a purely volume-based play in fantasy, and he only had 12 carries in week 1. He re-injures his foot. He's underdogs against the Patriots, who aren't very good, but they're underdogs against the Pats. Like, they're going to be underdogs in every game. I'm not feeling good about Naji, and I traded Naji Harris this week in one of my high-stakes leagues straight up for A.J. Dillon. Super aggressive trade. But A.J. Dillon, he was number 9 running back in week 1, and the Packers only scored 7 points. I think there's a huge ceiling for A.J. Dillon this season, and obviously I was really in on him before the season. #Quadzilla is one of my favorite players in the league too, so there might be some bias there, but I traded Naji straight up for A.J. Dillon. I still think if you have Naji, you got to start him this week, but I'm not starting him over A.J. Dillon. No way. Wait, where did that WalterPicks hoodie go that you were wearing in the beginning of the stream? Yeah, it got a little hot as I was talking about DeAndre Swift, but yeah, you can get this hoodie. Anyone can get this. I actually think it's only like, don't quote me on this, I think it's no more than $40, maybe $30, $35. You can get this right on our website, WalterPicks.com. Go to the store. There's a bunch of different stuff there that you can check out. Really do appreciate that from you, Yarjman. Greg, hey, Sam, longtime sub here. Do I start Kittle today? Nope. Can't start Kittle today. Does not look like he's going to play. And even if he did play, I think I would recommend you not start him because he's clearly not at full strength. And that's really concerning, especially in a game now that the over-under is dropping, Greg. It went from 45.5 to 40.5 in the 49ers Seahawks game just in the last hour because the weather's looking worse. 15-mile-an-hour winds sustained likely throughout the game. Light rain sustained likely throughout the game for the 49ers, and that's very concerning. So no, do not start George Kittle. Options are Muth or Knox. Yes, let me pull up my tight end rankings. Muth looked really good in week 1. I think he's a pretty interesting option. I actually don't have Dawson Knox in my top 10, but I think Dawson Knox is a decent bet to fall into the end zone. And that's like all you're betting on at this point. But yeah, I think I would go Pratt Fire Muth. You can see I really, really emphasize the Muth part in my rankings today. But yeah, I think I would go Muth over Dawson Knox. And yeah, you can't start Kittle. You just can't start him. It is a brutal start to the season for Kittle. I'm seeing this again. You start Christian Kirk over Paris Campbell. This one's easy. Hey, Sam, what's up? Michael Thomas, DJ Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Deontay. Again, you have to start Amon-Ra St. Brown. the stretch Amon-Ra St. Brown is on is in the most elite of elite company. He's on pace to have his 8th consecutive game dating back to last season with at least 8 catches. That would put him in a group that is Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, end of list. Those are the only guys that have ever had 8 straight games with at least 8 catches in a row. I mean, it's just crazy from Amon-Ra St. Brown. And he gets to Washington today. They're not a very good secondary. I mean, he definitely could do it again today. I'm rooting for him to do it. I think you got to start Amon-Ra. And then I also think you got to start Michael Thomas with no Alvin Kamara out. Or with Alvin Kamara out. Judy or Sanders. This one's really close, Evan. This one's really close. I really do like Sanders, what we saw from him in week 1. Important note here. Yeah, I think I would go Judy over Sanders. If this is a PPR league. If it's not a PPR league, I think I'd go Sanders. Half PPR, I think I'd go Judy. A very recent news report here just 10 minutes ago. It's not looking good for Julio Jones to play the Saints today. The Bucs were hopeful he'd be able to play, but this beat report is now anticipating he will be out for this game. We should get like the inactive report very soon, though. So this is not official. But guys, this is what I've been saying. It's why I've been saying all morning, don't start Julio Jones. There's a good chance he doesn't even play. And if he does play, we know he's not 100%. We know he's at a really high risk of re-injury. So don't play Julio Jones. Do play Russell Gage. Russell Gage is playing. Singletary or Lazard. Oh, that one's tough, man. Lazard's a huge question mark, obviously, this week. I'm okay like shooting for the upside with Lazard, but Singletary is definitely the safer play. I mean, that's another classic safety versus upside play. Like, do you want to lock in at least 7 points? Go with Singletary. Do you want to have a shot at 15 plus? I would go with Lazard in that scenario. Kareem Hunt or Michael Carter. That one's tough. I think I would go Hunt in that one, though. They're playing each other this week. I think the Browns are going to run right over the Jets. I got no faith in the Jets at all. Burkhead or Pollard. T. Higgins, by the way, it does look like he's playing. It does look like T. Higgins is playing. So I'm seeing that question a lot in both lives. We are live on TikTok and YouTube right now. By the way, if you are watching live on TikTok, you get way more info on the YouTube live. Like the YouTube live, just hands down, it's a better experience. You get my top 10 rankings, every single position, my picks against the spread, my DraftKings lineup. It's all just showing on the screen. And I can also pull up your comments on the YouTube live a little bit easier too. So come over to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. And if you are watching live on YouTube, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. I really do appreciate that. We should be getting some reports very soon. I think they come out maybe in the next 30 minutes of the official actives and inactives. But right now, it is trending towards Julio Jones not playing. It's trending towards George Kittle not playing. Mike Evans trending towards playing. Russell Gage trending towards playing. Donovan Smith, the left tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's not playing. That's already been confirmed by head coach Todd Bowles. The offensive line is super concerning for the Bucs. That's why I'm taking the Saints to beat the Bucs straight up and against the spread. Swift or Sutton? Yeah, see, like in that scenario, I'm okay at least considering Sutton. I think you probably should still go Swift. Again, Swift's the only guy on this list. You're watching live on TikTok. Like you should still probably start. He's gonna play. And earlier this morning when I made this list, it was looking more like a good chance that he wasn't gonna play. He has an ankle injury, but we know that the Lions value Swift very, very, very heavily. And we also know they like Jamal Williams a lot. So it could be very possible that Swift only gets 15 touches this week, which isn't awful, especially if he gets some goal line touches or some targets. But it's definitely not this true ceiling that we're used to having with Swift. Waddle or Thielen, I'm definitely going Waddle. I really like Waddle. I really like Tyreek Hill against the Ravens. The Ravens are without basically their entire cornerback room. Like none of their corners are playing. Like they're literally calling up practice squad corners to try to cover Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle this week. I think both guys are absolute smash plays. A Gage or Jeff Wilson, full PPR. I'm okay going Gage. I really like Gage. I actually think in that DraftKings lineup I had up before, I don't know if I had Gage in there. Let me see. Because I do really like Gage. Yeah, I'll probably, what I'll do in this lineup, I think, I'm pulling up my DraftKings lineup on the YouTube live right now. If you come over to the YouTube live, if you're watching live on TikTok, it's right in the TikTok bio. You're like a couple presses of your finger away if you're on TikTok to come to the YouTube live. If you are watching live on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 10,000 YouTube subscribers this season. And if everyone watching right now hit the subscribe button, we'd actually be pretty close. So I really do appreciate that. But yeah, so I'm rocking with Trey Lance in all my DraftKings lineups this week. And then, of course, we're again a couple hours away from kickoff, and the weather's just getting worse and worse and worse for Trey Lance. 15-mile-an-hour winds and steady light rain. Not heavy rain. It's not as bad as last week, but it's still not great for Trey Lance. Light rain, 15-mile-an-hour sustained winds, which makes me want to take Brandon Ayuk out of this lineup. It might not be the worst thing for Trey Lance. Guys, Trey Lance had 13 rushing attempts last week. That was second most among quarterbacks. And we know fantasy football scoring is broken for the rushing QBs. He didn't rush for a touchdown in week 1, but if he's getting 13 carries or more again this week, he's going to rush for touchdowns. He's going to rush for more than 30 yards. So I do really like Trey Lance in fantasy this week. I'm downgrading him a little bit, though, because of this wind and this rain. And I'm going to take Ayuk out, but I think I'm going to put in Russell Gage for Ayuk because I think Russell Gage is going to be extremely low owned. We know Julio Jones is trending towards being out. We know Chris Godwin is out. We know Mike Evans is shaken up. Leonard Fournette is shaken up. Russell Gage is also shaken up. And his offensive line is also trash right now, heading into week 2. But I like Gage being a little bit more involved than he was in week 1. And I also think he's just going to be extremely low rostered in DraftKings, which is another thing I'm aiming for in these tournaments. We don't have any official news yet, I don't think, about these actives. Here we go. Leonard Fournette, he's officially active. Dolphins left tackle, officially active. Ravens, J.K. Dobbins, he's officially inactive. Lions running back DeAndre Swift, active. So, guys, start Swift. I know I've been saying I'm a little bit nervous, but you should start Swift. In almost every scenario, you got to start Swift. Marcus Peters for the Ravens, he's active. So they do have one of their top corners. Marcus Peters didn't play a whole game last season. If you guys remember, before the season, Marcus Peters went down in that onslaught of injuries for the Ravens when Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins were injured back-to-back days. I think Peters was injured back-to-back plays with one of those guys. I think it was Edwards then Peters last season. So the first time we've seen Marcus Peters in a long time. And this is the only corner, really, that the Ravens have in week 1. So that's definitely a little concerning. Officially inactive, Julio Jones, officially inactive. Make sure you're not starting Julio Jones. Definitely a good bump for Russell Gage and Mike Evans. Julio Jones, inactive. He will not play today. Glad we put him on the must-bench list. Mike Evans is playing, though. Russell Gage is officially active as well. Alvin Kamara, officially inactive. He's not playing today. We already said J.K. Dobbins. Denzel Mims, healthy scratch again, and that's not really newsworthy. So, yeah, looks like Julio Jones out. Chris Godwin out. Big news for Russell Gage. That's big news for Russell Gage. 100%. I think you can strongly consider Russell Gage now in fantasy. All right, some big news to catch everyone up on. Good morning, Sam. Pick 2, MT, Marquise Brown, T. Higgins. Good morning, man. We're only 30 minutes. Danny Grease, man. Great to see you in the YouTube Live. Really, really appreciate seeing you. Again, hope all is well, man. Michael Thomas, Marquise Brown, T. Higgins. Yeah. Take a look at my top 10 rankings. This is a super, super tough question because I want to start Marquise Brown, but I also really want to start Higgins, he's going to be playing his full allotment of snaps this week. He's fully recovered from his concussion, supposedly. Michael Thomas, 2 without. Alvin Kamara is a guy I really want, but I have Marquise Brown. He's the only one of these guys I have in my top 10 because I think Marquise Brown, his ceiling is just astronomically high. So I think I might go Marquise Brown, Michael Thomas, honestly, in this situation. Sam, would you start Lance or Carr? Yeah. So I actually updated my quarterback rankings based off this news of the wind and the rain, and I'd start Derek Carr over Lance. I originally had Lance, I think, ahead of Carr when I started this live, but you got to adjust when new information comes. And there was new information that the weather was getting a little bit worse in the 49ers game. And even Vegas is adjusting for this. The over-under in this 49ers Seahawks game has dropped from 44.5 to 40.5. That's not great for Lance. I do think this rain, though, in this wind, maybe he sees another 13 carries this week. So I still like Lance. I still have him as a top 10 QB option this week. I still think he's being slept on just generally. And I feel like a lot of, again, the real football analysis of Trey Lance, of people not loving Trey Lance's throwing ability, is seeping into the fantasy analysis when it really shouldn't. Because what we care about in fantasy is carries at the quarterback position. He was number 2 in carries at the quarterback position in week 1. But Derek Carr gets the Cardinals. And the Cardinals secondary looked horrible in week 1. And I think they're going to look horrible again in week 2 and really throughout the whole season. So I really like Derek Carr as a safe option. I think Lance is still an intriguing play, though. And I am still playing Lance in my DraftKings lineup, but I'm going to take Ayuk out. I think I'm going to put Russell Gage in. Hey, Sam, start 2 full PPR. Cordell Patterson, A.J. Dillon, Christian Kirk, or A-Rob. You should put the chat in slow mode. I've never heard of slow mode, Sean, but this is definitely something I'm going to look into. And if any of my moderators are watching and they can control that, definitely look into that. Slow mode would be pretty helpful. It's slow mode on TikTok. That would be super helpful. And if you're watching live on TikTok, we're also live on YouTube. And it's a little bit easier, actually, for me to answer your comments. On YouTube, I can pull them up right on the screen. And also on the YouTube Live, you're getting my top 10 players at every single position, just scrolling right across the bottom of the screen. You're getting all my picks against the spread. You're getting my DraftKings lineup. You're getting my favorite player prop, just all on the screen as I'm talking. A little bit more info on the YouTube Live. A little bit more functionality there. So come check out the YouTube Live. Link is in the TikTok bio. All right, let's get to this question, though. I'll pull up my tight end rankings while we do this. Cordell Patterson, A.J. Dillon, Christian Kirk, A-Rob. Yeah, it's got to be these middle 2, A.J. Dillon and Christian Kirk. And I like A-Rob. I think Allen Robinson is going to bounce back this week. I'm playing A-Rob in a lot of DraftKings lineups. I think he'll be pretty low rostered after a really disappointing week 1. He only had 1 catch against the Falcons this week, man. But Christian Kirk, guys, he was number 3 in the NFL in air yards in week 1. A.J. Dillon was the number 9 running back in week 1. The Packers only scored 7 points. They're big favorites against the Bears this week. I'm definitely starting both those guys in basically all situations. And I think we just saw Cordell Patterson's maybe like what will be his most carries in his career. Cordell Patterson just had 22 carries, guys, in week 1. He's never seen over 20 carries in his entire career. Damien Williams got hurt in that game. He was supposed to be more involved. He's out this week. I'm really intrigued to see if Tyler Algier will get activated this week or what they'll do behind Cordell Patterson, but I don't think we see Cordell Patterson get another 22 carries. I think that's really unlikely. Obviously, a great start for Cordell Patterson nonetheless, but especially with where you drafted him. But yeah, I don't feel great about him over A.J. Dillon, who was a top 10 running back. A.J. Dillon already had a better week than Patterson. Number 5 pick, Kayvon Thibodeau. He's out for the Giants again this week. So he's still not fully there. Evans, Gage, Perriman, they're going to be getting most of the receiver snaps today, probably for the Bucks. Michael Carter or Jeff Wilson. Yeah, I think I might go Michael Carter, honestly, over Jeff Wilson. I'm pretty nervous about Jeff Wilson overall. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Guys, we're heading into the real witching hour. I know if you watch Red Zone, we got the witching hour in sort of the fourth quarter. This is the fantasy football witching hour right now, though. We got like another hour-ish to make your start-sit decisions. And these start-sit decisions, they're going to actually determine whether you win or lose. Like, this is now. This is the time to make sure you're making the best start-sit decisions, which is why if I can't get your start-sit question, we're about to start doing the rapid-fire start-sits. If you guys think I've been talking fast up to this point, the rapid-fire start-sits are coming very, very soon. But if I can't get your start-sit question, it's going to be tough for me to get everyone's start-sit question. Go to the WalterPicks app. It's completely free to download on the iOS App Store and the Google Play App Store. And you can do infinite start-sit comparisons completely free. You also can try out some of the premium subscriptions starting for as little as $10 a month that will sync your league to ESPN, Yahoo, or Sleeper. But if I can't get your start-sit, the best place to go is the WalterPicks app. It will take into account your custom scoring settings, and you can do any start-sit comparisons you want, as many times as you want, for completely free. So I do recommend that if I can't get to your start-sit question. All right, I do want to run through, because we will do rapid-fire start-sit questions in a second. I do want to run through one more time just my general thoughts on some of these games. And I'll pull up my picks against the spread on the YouTube live again. I am probably one of the most pessimistic Pats fans that you will find. I said before this season, I think there's a better chance the Pats come in last in their division than that they make the playoffs. That's looking relatively accurate after week 1. But I still like the Pats to win today. They're going to lose their next two games, I think, against the Ravens and the Packers. I don't think those games might even be very close for the Patriots. But the Steelers, guys, their offense is very, 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 very suspect. Again, in week 1, the Steelers beat the Bengals in that crazy OT game where the Bengals were only an extra point away from winning that game. The Bengals really should have won that game. But the Steelers won the turnover battle in that game 5-0. They turned over the Bengals 5 times. And they turned over the ball 0 times. Historically speaking, teams that have won the turnover battle by 5 average a win by 18 points over the last 10 years. Teams that won the turnover battle by 5, and this makes sense. You win the turnover battle by 5 in the NFL, yeah, you're probably going to crush that team on average, historically, by 18 points. For the Steelers, they should have lost after winning the turnover battle by 5. I don't think they're going to win the turnover battle by 5 again in a game this season. They lost TJ Watt. I still think the Steelers defense causes problems for the Patriots offense today. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like bullish on the Patriots offense. But I think the Patriots defense is also going to crush the Steelers offense. I'm a little nervous about the Steelers receivers. I'm not saying this is a lock, but I am taking the Pats. Probably one of the only times I'll take the Pats this entire season. And I am taking them this week against the Steelers. I also I think that one of the highest scoring games this week is going to be the Dolphins and the Ravens. I don't think it got enough attention how aggressive Lamar Jackson was passing the ball down the field in week 1. He was one of the most aggressive adjusted yards per attempt quarterbacks in the league in a game that, like, the game was over really before it started. Like, it's not like they needed to throw the ball a lot against the Jets. They ran the ball really inefficiently. But guys, Lamar Jackson, air yards per attempt was number 2 in the NFL. 11.8 air yards per attempt for Lamar Jackson. He's pushing the ball deep down the field. He was 3rd in deep ball attempts. He threw 7 deep balls. That's passes over 25 yards. That's why I really like Rashad Bateman's prop today. But on the flip side, Marcus Peters, he's back for the first time in over a year. But there's no other corners starting. Almost all of them are out for the Ravens. And that's going to be really tough, I think, in a matchup against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So I really like that game to be high scoring. I like the Dolphins against the spread, but I think the Ravens win in that game. One more quick game I wanted to go over is this Saints-Bucks game. I think the Saints beat the Bucks. They are without Julio Jones. They're without Chris Godwin. They're without their starting left tackle. I think they're without another one of their offensive tackles. They are really, really thin all of a sudden on offense. And Russell Gage is playing. Mike Evans is playing. Leonard Fournette's playing. They were all questionable, though. They're all dealing with their own injuries. They are playing, though. So I think the Saints have a really good shot at this one. Obviously, Alvin Kamara's out. I think that's good news for Michael Thomas. I think that's good news for Jarvis Landry. I think that's good news for Chris Olave. And I think it's good news for Taysom Hill. I want nothing to do, really, though, with Mark Ingram. I want nothing to do with Tony Jones. Guys, do not let Tony Jones onto your roster. Keep him on the waiver wire. Last season, Tony Jones had a game with 16 carries. He finished with 27 yards. He finished with 2.7 points. 0 catches. He's absolute dust. Do not trust Tony Jones. We confirmed Tony Jones is dust last season, so let's not even bring him up in the conversation this season until he shows us something. A lot of guys to bench this week. Chris Godwin's not playing. Alvin Kamara's not playing. Michael Pittman's not playing. George Kittle's not playing. Julio Jones is not playing. Tony Pollard's playing, but I'm not starting him. Cam Akers is playing. I'm definitely not starting him. Devin Duvernay is playing. Absolutely no to Devin Duvernay. Guys, he had 2 catches. He had 2 catches for 2 touchdowns last week. He had 4 total catches. I don't think he's going to have a game with multiple touchdowns again this season. Like, you just can't trust the 2 touchdowns from last week with Devin Duvernay. Do not start Devin Duvernay. I would start Paris Campbell over Devin Duvernay. I would start Kendrick Bourne over Devin Duvernay. Like, these are some guys that are, like, really bad, and you're still starting them. I would start George Pickens over Devin Duvernay. George Pickens had pretty much a donut, I think, in week 1. Nervous for him to come against the Pats after they took Tyquan Thornton over George Pickens. I mean, it's just brutal. George Pickens is probably going to score a touchdown against the Pats today. You heard it here. Mike Gesicki, he should be on the waiver wire. DeAndre Swift is the one guy in this list that you should start. You should start DeAndre Swift. Again, I thought he was leaning towards not playing. He is playing, though. So in most situations, you start DeAndre Swift. Start DeAndre Swift. Start DeAndre Swift. Yeah, you can start DeAndre Swift. I know he's on my do not start list, but you can start DeAndre Swift. Mark Ingram, though, I don't feel great about Mark Ingram. Again, Mark Ingram and Tony, I feel better about Mark Ingram than Tony Jones. In a pinch, you can start Mark Ingram. I think he's in like the Breece Hall type sketchy area where, like, yeah, he's probably going to get like 10 to 15 touches, but does he really have the juice left to make anything of it against a pretty good Bucs front line? The Bucs have been so good against the run over the last few years. They're pretty good against the run in week 1 also. So I'm not feeling great about Mark Ingram. And then all of a sudden, like, you play Mark Ingram, you play Tony Jones, then Taysom Hill gets the carry inside the 5. Like, come on. What are we doing? Don't start Mark Ingram. Don't start Tony Jones. I think those are most of my do not starts. Allen Robinson thoughts. Yeah, I really think Allen Robinson bounces back today. I think the Rams crushed the Falcons, but I'm still taking the Falcons plus 10. I think that's too many points for the Falcons. They looked pretty good, honestly, in week 1. Their offense looked good. The defense didn't look amazing, obviously. I do like the 49ers to beat the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are, like, I won't be shocked if the Seahawks don't win another game. Obviously, I was really low on the Seahawks heading into the season. I actually had a wager on the Seahawks to not win a game this season. Obviously, that didn't go well. I was really heavy. I was heavier on the Broncos over the Seahawks than any other game in week 1. That was a huge L for me. Obviously, the Broncos pretty clearly better than the Seahawks, though. The Broncos are 9-point favorites this week. Seahawks are 9-point underdogs this week. All right. Why bench Pollard? Because the offensive line is looking really, really, really bad for the Cowboys with all the injuries stacking up, and Cooper Rush is starting for the Cowboys. The only Cowboy I really think you need to start this week, CeeDee Lamb. I think you have to start him. Where you drafted CeeDee Lamb with the target volume you saw week 1, 11 targets in week 1. I don't have any faith in Cooper Rush, but you got to start CeeDee Lamb, I think, this week. Other than that, though, like, Zeke is another guy you kind of need to start in most situations, but, like, you don't need to start him in every situation. CeeDee Lamb, guys, he was out there 97% of the snaps. He had 11 targets. He only had 2 catches. This could end up being CeeDee Lamb's worst week of the season, might be week 1. So, yeah, you got to start CeeDee Lamb, I think, in pretty much every single situation. Why bench Kamara? He's not playing. Yeah, all these guys, except for really DeAndre Swift, they're either not playing or, like, Tony Pollard's playing, Cam Akers is playing, Devin Duvernay is playing, Mike Gesicki's playing, DeAndre Swift playing. But everyone up to Julio Jones, not playing today. Chris Godwin not playing. Alvin Kamara not playing. Michael Pittman not playing. George Kittle not playing. Julio Jones not playing. Get these guys out of your lineups ASAP. I mean, they're not playing. They're zeros. They're complete zeros this week. Can we get the top 10 running back rankings again? Yeah, let me pull those up. I have A.J. Dillon number 9 in my running back rankings today. He was I have number 10. Leonard Fournette's number 9. I have A.J. Dillon number 10, but A.J. Dillon was number 9 last week in the running back rankings after the week. He was the number 9 best running back in PPR leagues. He led the Packers in receiving, and the Packers only scored 7 points. Like, that might have been closer to A.J. Dillon's floor than his ceiling. I think that's a really encouraging sign for him this season. Ayuk or Dotson or Zay Jones, yeah, you got to go Ayuk. And again, you got to bump Ayuk down a little bit. There's some concerning weather again in this 49ers game. 15-mile-an-hour sustained winds, light rain throughout the game, but I'm still starting over Zay Jones. I'm still starting over Jahan Dotson. Both guys actually had pretty intriguing week ones, but I feel much, much, much better still about Ayuk than I do those other guys. Guys, we're live. Why are you benching Swift? Yeah, so again, this was from 6:30 this morning. I think you start Swift. In pretty much all situations, you should be starting Swift. But he does have an ankle injury. It is a little bit more risk than usual. But yeah, you should start Swift. Start Swift. That's why I have my head right over Swift on the TikTok live. Because I can't switch the background at this point without shutting out the live. I would start A.J. Dillon, though, over Swift. I don't have Swift as a top 10 running back this week because of the ankle injury. We know they like Jamal Williams. So I think that there's a chance Swift only has around 15 touches this week, which is lower than his usual floor. And it lowers his ceiling too. I'm still starting Swift though, but not over A.J. Dillon, not over any of my top 10 running backs. Again, let me pull my top 10 running backs on the YouTube live. I'm not starting Swift over any of these guys. Any of these guys that you're seeing on the YouTube live. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok, you can see my top 10 rankings, every single position on the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. Elliott or Curtis Samuel? Yeah, I'm starting Elliott, man, over Curtis Samuel. I feel like I've said no to Curtis Samuel a lot this week, but I'm not going to panic. Start Curtis Samuel. He had 11 targets, 4 carries week one. Obviously, that's really good usage. 15 opportunities for Curtis Samuel. I don't know if he's going to get that again, though. This week, it's really tough for me to expect such a big week each week from Curtis Samuel. I think Jahan Dotson's probably going to overtake him in this offense, and we know Terry McLaurin's ahead of him. And we know Antonio Gibson's going to be very involved. So, yeah, I don't love Curtis Samuel. I don't love him. And I don't think I'd start him in that situation. Michael Thomas, I don't feel great about starting him over Zeke. As bad as the Cowboys' offensive line is, as bad as Cooper Rush is, I don't think I can start Curtis Samuel over Zeke. Michael Thomas or Mike Evans, I would go with. I have Mike Evans. The battle of the Michaels here, Mike and Michael. I have Mike Evans as my number 9, I think, receiver, maybe number 10. Let me pull my receiver rankings again. I don't have Michael Thomas in my top 10. Michael Thomas was a top 10 receiver, though, in week 1. I think you go Mike Evans, though. Again, with all these injuries for the Bucs, like Mike Evans could be the number 1 receiver this week if he can just stay healthy throughout the whole game. Again, he has his own injury heading into this week. But, yeah, Mike Evans without Chris Godwin, Mike Evans without Julio Jones. I feel like you got to play Mike Evans. You really got to play Mike Evans, I think, this week. Sutton or Moore. I would go Sutton over DJ Moore. Allen Robinson or Christian Kirk. That one's tough. I really like A-Rod this week, but I think you go Kirk. I'm Kirk again. Number 3 player in the league in air yards. This is why we were buying Christian Kirk all offseason. It was pretty clear, honestly, that Christian Kirk was going to be leading this team in air yards heading into the season. Like we saw a massive contract for Christian Kirk, and this happens so much in fantasy where the real football analysis sometimes seeps into the fantasy football analysis for the wrong reasons, and people didn't like the contract Christian Kirk got, and somehow that seeped into people not liking him in fantasy. He's number 3 in the NFL in air yards in week 1, and I mean he could be top 10 in air yards in the NFL this season easily. And that's the best volume metric to track for these wide receivers. So, yeah, I really like Christian Kirk this week and really every week to come. I think you've got a really good steal with Christian Kirk in fantasy. All right, we're heading into the rapid-fire questions section of this live stream. And that is being done a little bit differently this year. We're doing this a little bit differently this year because I want the goal of the rapid-fire segment in this live, which is usually how I end the live. And we have about 30 minutes left in live at this point. We've been live for 2.5 hours, basically since I woke up. I've been prepping and doing this live. Can't wait for the games to start. But this year we're doing the start sit rapid fire questions. We're doing those on YouTube. So I'm only going to be doing them on YouTube. But I'm giving a fair warning about this. And anyone can come to the YouTube live. It's free to join. You can, if you're watching live on TikTok, you can join the YouTube live in literally like 2 clicks. You get like 2 presses of your finger away on TikTok from the YouTube live. It's right in the bio. And the reason I'm doing this is because I can pull up questions on the YouTube live just way easier. I can answer questions faster on YouTube than TikTok. And that's the whole goal of the rapid fire. So if you're watching live on TikTok, that's fine. You'll still hear the rapid fire questions. You'll probably get a lot of your start sits addressed in some of the questions I answer on YouTube. But if you want your specific question answered, gotta come to the YouTube live. Again, link is in the TikTok bio. We're heading into the rapid fire section of this live stream. Again, if I don't get to your start sit, go to the WalterPicks app. You can do infinite start sit comparisons, 100% completely free. Link to the WalterPicks apps in the YouTube description and in the TikTok bio. Try it out. You can also input your custom league settings. I do really appreciate, last thing I'll say, give me your settings. PPR, half PPR, non-PPR, when you ask your questions, it will impact my answers because the scoring matters. Scoring settings matter. All right. We're going to rapid fire. Let me finish this coffee really quick. Then we're going rapid fire. Starting with this one that's on the YouTube live right now. All right. Question from Pat. Taysom Hill or Albert O? So I have Albert O in my top 10 tight end rankings. But with this Taysom Hill thing, Alvin Kamara's out. I think that's great news for Taysom Hill to get another couple carries at least. I'm okay starting Taysom Hill after everyone after Dallas Goedert on this ranking. So I have Dallas Goedert ranking number 6. You can start Taysom Hill over anyone else. Really, after Dallas Goedert, like you're just praying your tight end falls into the end zone. So if you feel better about Taysom Hill, maybe getting a red zone carry than you do about Albert O, I'm cool with that, man. Go with Taysom Hill. But it's such a dart throw at tight end that's why like the floor is 0 points for every tight end after Dallas Goedert on this list. I would argue that the floor is 0 points. Literally any of these tight ends could score 0 points, and I wouldn't be like, wow, that's shocking. Same thing goes for Taysom Hill. Same thing goes for Albert O. But I think Taysom Hill is an intriguing ceiling this week with no Alvin Kamara, and he had 80 rushing yards last week. So, yeah, I'm okay going to that. All right, rapid fire in the comment section. Let's do it. Half PPR, Edmonds or Zeke. I'm going Edmonds over Zeke. Michael Thomas or CeeDee Lamb. I'm going Michael Thomas over CeeDee Lamb. Zeke or Naji. I'm going Naji over Zeke. I'm pretty scared about both them. Cut Kittle or Keenan Allen. Only have one bench spot in the guillotine league. Cut Kittle, man. Cut Kittle. I think you cut Kittle over Keenan Allen. Hunt or ETN, PPR. I'd probably go with Kareem Hunt over ETN in PPR against the Jets. Jahan Dotson, Robert Woods, Damian Pierce, PPR. This one for me, it's between Dotson and Pierce, the two rookies. I think Pierce gets more touches this week. The coaches said they want to get him more touches. They are big underdogs again. I think I'd go Pierce, though, in this one. Trade for Zeke? No. Okay, do not trade for Zeke. Don't put yourself in that situation. Cordell Patterson or Zeke? I think I might go Patterson over Zeke. And again, I don't think Patterson's seeing the 20-plus carries he saw week 1, but I'm pretty scared about Zeke for sure. Behind this offensive line. Same reason I'm scared about Tony Pollard this week. Mooney or Bateman? Yeah, I got this one earlier, Tommy. I think Mooney is slightly better than Bateman, but I like both a lot. I think both have really high upside. But Mooney against the Packers, who just got torched by Justin Jefferson. Obviously, Darnell Mooney's no Justin Jefferson, but still, I think I would go Mooney. Mondre or J-Rob? I go Mondre. I think this could be a Mondre week. Darnell Mooney or Sutton in a PPR league? That one's really close. I'd go Sutton, though, over Mooney. I think this is the first Christian Watson question that I've seen. I want to answer this one. Oh, I lost it. Let's see if I can get the Christian Watson question. Not going to find him. MT, Sutton, and Brady or Carr. Yeah, I'd go MT and I'd go Carr over Brady this week. I think Carr's really safe. Carr's a super safe bet. Super safe bet against the Cardinals. Jeff Wilson, Brees, or Ingram. I'd probably rank them in this order. I want nothing to do with Mark Ingram. DJ Moore, Sutton, MT. I think I would probably rank these guys in reverse order. MT, Sutton, then DJ Moore. McLaren. We're calling him Terry McScorin, by the way. New nickname for Terry McScorin. Michael Thomas or CeeDee Lamb, PPR. I'd go MT, then McScorin, then CeeDee Lamb probably. I do really want to start CeeDee Lamb, but if you have these good receivers, I'm okay benching him. AJ Dillon, I'm playing over David Montgomery 100%. Lance or Winston, full PPR. I like Lance. I think more than Winston. Some people might disagree with me on that one, but you're getting the rushing for Trey Lance. This is, let me pull this up again. Yeah, my quarterback rankings on the bottom of the screen now. Swift or Hunt? Yeah, I'm going Swift over Hunt. I know I've told a lot of people to bench Swift. The ankle injury is concerning, but I'm still going Swift over Hunt. Zeke or Naji? PPR, yeah, I'm going Naji over Zeke. Judy, Evans, Dillon, pick 2. I'd go Evans and Dillon over Judy. Dobbins, out. Drake, Boyd, Donovan People-Jones at flex. Thank you, man. Happy PR. I'm not starting Drake, man. I'm not starting Kenny Drake. I don't feel great about Donovan People-Jones either. I honestly think I'd go Boyd in this one. Sam, pick 1. PPR, McScorin, Monty, or Kirk. If that's Christian Kirk, I'd go Christian Kirk. I think over both those guys. Then McScorin, then David Montgomery. Mike Evans or Curtis, I'd go Mike Evans. Ayuk or Kirk, I'd go Kirk over Ayuk of the Bazooka. A little bit concerning weather in San Francisco. Or I don't know where the game is, actually. I could be wrong if it's in San Francisco. But wind and rain in that game. 15-mile-an-hour winds sustained throughout the game, likely. And light rain sustained throughout the game, likely. That means maybe more rushing for Lance, but less throwing, which is worse for Ayuk. Kenyon or Brees Hall? I'd go Brees Hall. I want nothing to do with Kenyon Drake. Swift or Henderson? I'd go Swift, I think, over Henderson. But it's really close, man. With the ankle injury, I still think you go Swift. But I think Henderson might be just a tiny, tiny bit safer as a 10-point favorite against the Falcons. So if you're shooting for the ceiling, go Swift. Floor, I think go Darrell Henderson. ETN or Drake London? PPR, I go Drake London over ETN. I really liked what we saw at London in week 1, and I think we could see another big game out of him in week 2. I would not bench Naji for Kareem Hunt. I am panicked about Naji, though. Again, I traded him away this week for A.J. Dillon. A-Rob or CeeDee Lamb? I'd go CeeDee Lamb over A-Rob. It's really close, though, definitely. Good morning, Sam. Should I start Gabe Davis or T. Higgins? Not morning for me anymore, man. We're 2 minutes away from afternoon. I've been live for close to 3 hours now, man. It does not feel like morning, but good morning. I would go with T. Higgins over Gabe Davis. And Gabe Davis is questionable, by the way. We won't know, really, if Gabe Davis is playing until tomorrow. I do think he's going to play, but we're not positive. So, I would go T. Higgins. Russell Gage or Corey Davis? I'd go Gage over Davis all day, man. I like Gage a lot today as a deep dart throw. Start Lenny. Yeah, you got to start Lenny. Robinson, Jacobs, or Monty. I think Josh Jacobs is actually an intriguing start this week, and I bashed a lot on Josh Jacobs, I feel like, this offseason. But Brandon Bolden's out this week, and I think that the Raiders can put up a lot of points against the Cardinals' defense, too. So I'm okay going Josh Jacobs, honestly, in this one. We stretch the legs a little bit. I've been sitting on this couch for quite some time. Terry McLaurin or CeeDee Lamb? McScorin or CeeDee Lamb? This one's, again, really close. It's really tough with CeeDee Lamb because we know he's so good, and he's so clearly the top receiver on his team. But then you have Terry McScorin. I have CeeDee Lamb slightly ahead of him. I think you go CeeDee Lamb. Again, Cooper Rush not good, but CeeDee Lamb's probably going to get more targets. Sam, pick one. Edmonds, Pierce, Wilson. Yeah, I think I would go in this order. I don't love Jeff Wilson. They said they're going to go with a hot hand. Jeff Wilson's going to get the first crack at it. But I think Tyrion Davis-Price has a good chance to carve out a role, too. Start Curtis Samuel or Jamal Williams. Tad, I think I would go Curtis Samuel over Jamal. Jamal is an interesting play, honestly, with the Swift injury. He scored twice last week. But I don't feel great about Jamal Williams. Deontay Johnson or Cooks? I'd go Cooks. I like Deontay Johnson a lot. But Cooks, guys, he was number 3. Was he number 5 in the league? I think I might be confusing some of his numbers and Christian Kirk's numbers. One sec. They're both really up there in air yards for sure. But yeah, Brandon Cooks, he was number 3. So Christian Kirk, I think, was number 7 maybe in air yards. But yeah, air yards are the best metric to look at for receivers in terms of their pure volume, because it's not just about the targets, it's about how valuable the targets are. And if your targets are deep down the field, that's pretty valuable. That's what you get with Brandon Cooks. I think you got to start Brandon Cooks. I think he is a fringe top 10 play. This week, Kareem Hunt or Jeff Wilson? I'm going Hunt over Wilson. Brady or Lance? 5-star review from Ryan. Thank you, man. 5-star reviews for the WalterPicks app. Helps me out so much. Takes you like 2 seconds, too. I would go Lance over Brady. I'm pretty scared for Brady this week, honestly, with the offensive line injuries and with all the receivers banged up. Landry or Bateman? I'd go Bateman over Landry. Bateman's my favorite prop this week, over 45.5 receiving yards. Claypool or Hines? Really tough one. I kind of liked the usage from Claypool, though, week 1. Low-key, when I looked into it, it wasn't a great week 1 for Chase Claypool, I don't think. Let me pull this up again. But when you actually looked into the peripheral numbers, yeah, he only had 18 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but he saw 6 carries. He had 9.4 points. He saw 6 carries. And he had the 4th most slot snaps in the league. 78% of Chase Claypool's routes came from the slot. 44 routes from the slot. I mean, at 6'4", 90th percentile speed, that's kind of a scary big slot receiver. I think that could really create a lot of mismatchups against the Pats and a lot of teams, honestly. So I'm okay going Claypool over Hines. Carr or Winston? I'd go Carr over Winston. Brandon Cooks, Darrell Henderson, CD, Michael Thomas, choose 2. I think you go Michael Thomas and Brandon Cooks probably in this one. I think you strongly consider CeeDee Lamb too. I don't know about CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Darrell Henderson over any of these guys, though. 1 p.m. game, Robbie Anderson or Russell Gage? I'd go Gage over Anderson. Pierce, Etienne, or Mooney, half PPR? I'm going Mooney over both those guys. Dortch, we got a Greg Dortch question here. He actually was very involved for the Cardinals, but I have no faith in Greg Dortch. I don't feel good about starting Greg Dortch. Let me pull up the exact numbers on Greg Dortch. Maybe they'll make me feel a little bit better about him. He had 9 targets in week 1. He ran a route on every single Kyler Murray drop back in week 1, but he had 7 catches, 63 yards, 13 points. I mean, I just don't feel good about Greg Dortch, man. Boyd is the number 3 receiver on his team. I guess Dortch is probably number 2, maybe 3 behind Ertz. This one's not easy, Jared. As you can see, I feel better about Boyd and just the offense of Boyd a little bit more. But yeah, Greg Dortch, he did run a route every single play. Honestly, Greg Dortch might be an interesting DFS play at a really low price. I'm leaning Dortch after looking at these numbers. CeeDee Lamb or Gabe Davis or Bateman? I would Go CD, Bateman, then Gabe Davis. Maybe CD, Gabe Davis, then Bateman, but we don't know Gabe Davis is 100% playing. So if you are planning to start Gabe Davis, you should add Isaiah McKenzie or Jameson Elite Crowder because he's questionable. He picked up an ankle injury in the walkthrough, which is extremely rare because it was literally a walkthrough that he got hurt in. But we won't have the full injury report till tomorrow because he doesn't play till Monday, which makes me want to say just CeeDee Lamb, Bateman. And then Tonyan or Alberto, I like Tonyan, I think, a little bit more than Alberto. Davis projected 0 on ESPN. Which Davis? I need a little bit more context about this Davis. Davis Mills, Corey Davis, Mike Davis. There's probably more Davises that I'm not even thinking of. Which Davis is projected 0 on ESPN? Sam, pick one. Edmonds, Pierce, Wilson Jr. I'd go Edmonds, then Pierce, then Wilson Jr. Would you do CD for Pittman? I think that's fair. Yeah, I think I would do that, honestly. Once Dak's back, I still think I prefer CD, but Pittman looked good. Both guys obviously in tough spots now all of a sudden. Pittman's not playing today. St. Brown or Waddle full PPR, yeah, you're not allowed to bench St. Brown this week. Guys, you can't bench St. Brown this week. Again, we've very rarely seen the stretch of consistency at the receiver position than we've seen from St. Brown over his last 7 games. 7 straight games with at least 8 catches from Amon-Ra St. Brown. If he does it again today, which he definitely could, against a pretty weak, average at best Washington secondary, he will join a list of guys that have done this 8 straight games. This is the list of guys that have 8 straight games with at least 8 catches ever spanning in their career. Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, end of list. And that list could include Amon-Ra St. Brown after this week. Start Among Us St. Brown. Among Us St. Brown has gone over 20 fantasy points in 5 straight games. Like, he's not only providing the upside, he's providing insane consistency over his last 8 games. Like, you gotta trust Among Us. You gotta trust Among Us St. Brown. Debo or Kirk, until the streak ends, you gotta start Amon-Ra St. Brown, in my opinion. Yeah, you're not allowed to bench Debo, especially he scores a rushing touchdown in week 1. Elijah Mitchell out all of a sudden. The 6 rushing touchdowns that Debo Samuel had last season, he could easily top that now this season. A lot of people were hating on that in fantasy. Like, there's no way Debo rushes for another 6 touchdowns. Well, yeah, guys, there's a way he rushes for another 6 touchdowns because Elijah Mitchell's out the first 2 months of the season now. So, yeah, I like Debo a lot. You got to start Debo. You can only start one. CDT, Judy, DJ Moore, full PPR. Yeah. If you can only start one, I'm okay going T. Higgins in a situation. I think it's T or CD Lamb for me. I wouldn't start Judy or DJ Moore over either of those guys. Claypool. I missed the Claypool question. Or Penny. Yeah, I'd start Claypool over Penny. I don't feel good about Penny at all. Penny or Jamal Williams. Also start McKenzie at flex. And thoughts on Dillon PPR. I don't feel great about Penny, guys. He really let us down in week 1. And Kenneth Walker's back this week. And they're 9-point underdogs. The Seahawks are 9-point underdogs. Kenneth Walker's going to get some run. I feel a little bit better about Jamal Williams. And then McKenzie at flex. Depends about the Gabe Davis situation. I mean, Jamison Crowder actually did get a decent amount of McKenzie's work too, so I don't feel great about McKenzie. And yeah, I think you can feel okay about Dillon. He's going to score some touchdowns. Lock spreads this week. I don't have a single lock against the spread. This week I was 0-2 with my locks. Last week I'm very transparent with my L's, obviously. I was about 50% against the spread last week, though. I do think that the Saints are probably one of my favorite plays this week. I think the Saints beat the Bucs. I think the Bucs offensive line is really going to struggle this week. They have a lot of injuries on the whole offense, and basically every starting receiver and running back was questionable heading into this game. So I'm a little nervous about that as well. Okay. We got less than 1 hour till kickoff. Doesn't look like any breaking news has come out since we last reported the official inactives. I do want to run through that really quickly one more time. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok, we are also live on YouTube. We can get my top 10 rankings for every single position, my picks against the spread, and a little bit more likely I can answer your comment on YouTube. I will try to answer comments on both. But in the rapid fire section, which we are in right now, I usually stick to the YouTube because it's a little easier to answer the YouTube comments. Swift is active. Wan'Dale Robinson, Kayvon Thibodeau inactive, Leonard Fournette active, Laviska Shenault inactive. That's not very newsworthy. Mike Evans is active. Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, they're both inactive. Defensive tackle for the Commanders inactive. That could be good for Antonio Gibson. No real inactives in the Steelers Pats game. Michael Pittman inactive. Dearness Johnson inactive. Healthy scratch. That's pretty interesting. Alvin Kamara inactive. J.K. Dobbins inactive. Snoop Connor, inactive. Kadarius Toney, active. Brandon Braxton Berrios is active. Dortch, Cooper, or Smith, pick 2. Yeah, go Cooper and Smith. Get Greg Dortch out of here with those guys. I did say to start Greg Dortch, I think, in one question, but there was much easier player to start over. DJ Moore, Michael Thomas. Yeah, I'd go MT. There's no Alvin Kamara this week. I mean, that's great news for Michael Thomas. Have a great football Sunday, Kyle. Thanks so much for tuning in, man. Breece Hall or Wilson? Breece, I'm assuming this means Jeff Wilson. I'd go Breece over Jeff. I don't feel good about Jeff Wilson. I think that Deebo Samuel could get the high value touches. I think Tyrion Davis-Price or Trey Lance could get the high value touches in that backfield. So I don't feel good about Jeff Wilson at all. Judy or MT? I'm going MT over Judy. Etienne, Evans, or Kirk? Guys, you got to start Mike Evans. There's no Chris Godwin. There's no Julio Jones. You got to start Mike Evans, and he's dealing with injuries of his own. But if he's playing, I'm starting Mike Evans in basically all situations. I would start Christian Kirk over Etienne as well. I'm seeing an A.J. Brown question. Guys, you got to start A.J. Brown. You got to start A.J. Brown in all scenarios, basically. Let me pull up my wide receiver rankings again, which you can see on the YouTube live. Link to that is in the TikTok bio if you're watching live on TikTok. But yeah, I have A.J. Brown, I think, is my number 7 receiver right after Stephon Diggs. Nope, number 8 receiver right after Deebo Samuel. Yeah, start A.J. Brown. Gibson or Montgomery, non-PPR? Yeah, I'm going Gibson over Montgomery in a non-PPR league. Paris Campbell, Hunter Renfrow, Metcalf, PPR pick 2. I'm excited for Paris Campbell, man. I have him in a lot of best ball leagues. I think he's pretty comparable to Rashad Penny in a lot of ways. Obviously, they play a different position. Both guys, they're extremely athletic. Both guys dealt with a ton of injuries in the first 3 years in the league. Campbell is playing now without Michael Pittman, without Alec Pierce. He's the clear wide receiver 1. Ashton Doolin's going to get some run too. But Paris Campbell is number 3 in the NFL in week 1 in slot snaps. He's going to run a lot of routes from the slot. Again, he's probably going to be top 3 this week in slot snaps. And that's pretty good in PPR leagues. You're getting some easy completions to Paris Campbell in the slot. But I'm not starting him over Renfrow, and I'm not starting him over Metcalf. I'm not starting him over either of those guys. So I think Campbell's like a good dart throw, but not in this scenario. Renfrow against the Cardinals guys. I know Renfrow didn't do all that much. Devontae Adams was really cooking in week 1, but the Cardinals secondary is one to attack. You want Renfrow. And Metcalf was the only guy that you looked like you could trust in the Seahawks offense in week 1. Etienne or Edmonds? Happy PR. I'd go Edmonds over Etienne. Pick 2, Wilson, J. Will, Mooney, Pierce. Yeah, definitely these middle two. Definitely these middle two. Javonte Williams, Darnell Mooney. You got to go with. We're not benching Amon-Ra St. Brown, Connor. We've all decided. We all got together. Everyone that's listening to this, we all got together. We said, yeah, we're not going to bench Amon-Ra St. Brown. Basically, any situation. I like Michael Thomas, but again, let me just. Amon-Ra St. Brown's on the side of history with Michael Thomas actually today. There's only been 2 wide receivers in the history of the NFL that have had 8 consecutive games with at least 8 catches. That's a lot of catches in 8 straight games. And the only 2 guys that have ever done that, Michael Thomas in his prime and Antonio Brown in his prime. And today, if Amon-Ra St. Brown gets 8 catches, he will join that list in his second year in the league. So yeah, you start Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's hot. Start the hot guy. Zeke or Montgomery? This is such a tough one. I think I lean. My gut is telling me David Montgomery. My heart's telling me Zeke. But Walter's telling us to go with Montgomery. And I think that kind of makes sense. Again, the offensive line, really bad for Zeke. And the quarterback situation, really bad for Zeke. So yeah, I'm okay going Montgomery. Etienne, Breece Hall, or Michael Carter, PPR. I think I would rank them in this order, probably. Maybe Michael Carter, honestly, ahead of Breece Hall for now. Lazard, A.J. Dillon. Yeah, start A.J. Dillon. Guys, A.J. Dillon, he was the number 9 running back in PPR leagues in week 1, and the Packers only scored 7 points. He led the team in receiving. He looked great in week 1. He looked great. He was getting goal line carries. He was getting targets. And now they get a good matchup against the Bears. I think the Packers will beat the Bears pretty easily. And that's going to be good for A.J. Dillon. How are you feeling about Gibson this week? I feel pretty good about it. I feel good about him until Brian Robinson comes back. I'm going to feel pretty strong about him. Oh, here we go. Some rookies in this one. This is a deep league. Isaiah McKenzie, George Pickens, Christian Watson. I am definitely nervous that Christian Watson just ruined his whole rookie season with 1 drop. And usually I wouldn't overreact to 1 drop. And I mean, he did drop. It was probably around a 60-yard touchdown last week, just right in his hands, dropped. It was a good route by Christian Watson. But Allen Lazard's back this week. I want nothing to do with Christian Watson. We know Aaron Rodgers holds a grudge. You could just see it on his face after the catch. So maybe Christian Watson can put himself in that position again and bounce back, but we got to see it from him. I honestly feel best about George Pickens on this list. Isaiah McKenzie might be the safest option, but I am nervous about the Patriots' ability to stop George Pickens. And we also, there's just this long history of receivers that the Patriots pass on just coming back in dominating the Patriots. Like we've seen it so many times. They take Tyquan Thornton over George Pickens. George Pickens probably scoring a touchdown today against the Pats. I'm okay going George Pickens. He had a really bad week 1, but I think he could bounce back in week 2. Kenyon Drake, Ingram, and George Pickens was out there pretty much every snap too, which is good. You can't say the same thing about Isaiah McKenzie. Kenyon Drake, Ingram, or Damian Pierce. I think I'd go reverse order in these ranks. I don't want Kenyon Drake. I don't want Ingram either. And I think Damian Pierce will get more touches this week. The coaches said so themselves. That like, yeah, looking back, we should have got Damian Pierce more involved. I didn't draft Damian Pierce anywhere because I thought Rex Burkhead was going to be involved as a pass catcher. I didn't think he was going to be as involved as he was week 1, though. And I think we're going to see Damian Pierce out-touch Rex Burkhead this week. I still don't love it, but I like him more than Ingram. I like him more than Kenyon Drake. Ingram is a guy that I just can't trust. I'm not trusting Tony Jones either. Kenyon Drake's similar type of situation. Like, yeah, both guys are supposed to be the number 1 running backs in their team, but are we really confident they're going to be the ones getting the carry at the goal line, or is it going to be Taysom Hill, or is it going to be Lamar Jackson? It easily could go that way. And they're also probably not going to catch many passes. So, yeah, I'm kind of out on both those guys. Burks, Mooney, Isaiah McKenzie, PPR, he's got to be Mooney. Also, DraftKings today. Yeah, we are riding DraftKings today. I did 20 entries in the $3 max, 20 entry max. $3, 20 entry max DraftKings contest. I actually got to tinker with a lot of those lineups after the stream because I have the Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk of the Bazooka stack in way too many lineups because there's wind, 15-mile-an-hour sustained winds, and likely sustained light rain in this 49ers game. It's dropped the over-under in the 49ers game from 45.5 to 40.5. I think that still is okay with Trey. I'm still okay with Trey Lance this week. I have my number 10 quarterback. I did drop him a little bit after that weather news, but I still think he's going to run a lot. He had 13 carries in week 1. That was the second most among quarterbacks, only behind Jalen Hurts, and that's really, really encouraging, I think, for Trey Lance. But Brandon Ayuk, like, he might be a little less involved now if this weather does impact the passing, which I think it will impact the passing just a tiny bit. So I think I'm going to take Brandon Ayuk out of this lineup. This is my DraftKings lineup showing on the YouTube Live. Again, if you're watching live on TikTok, come to the YouTube Live. You can see my full DraftKings lineup on the YouTube Live right now and my top 10 rankings for each position on the YouTube Live. So the link is in the TikTok bio. But I think I'm going to swap Ayuk with Gage. I think Gage is a little bit lesser priced than Ayuk. I got to double check on that. And then I might have some room to upgrade somewhere else. Probably the Paris Campbell slot or maybe even the Bengals slot. We got to see about that. But yeah, this is my DraftKings lineup. I'm playing Trey Lance in basically all my DraftKings lineups. This week, I think he's being slept on, just in general. I've been here for 2 hours. Wow, Braden, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Pick one, Josh Jacobs, AJ Dillon. Also, just start Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. You are locking in a minimum of 20 points with AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. I don't hate Josh Jacobs this week. I've been pretty down on Josh Jacobs all offseason, but Brandon Bolden's out this week. I think that the Raiders are going to score a lot of points this week against the Cardinals, but I'm still starting AJ Dillon over Josh Jacobs. I have Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon both as top 10 running backs this week. I think AJ Dillon comes in at number 10 and Aaron Jones comes in at number 7. But yeah, I really like both guys. Let me pull up my top 10 running backs for this week. Robbie Anderson or Christian Kirk. I'm going Kirk over Robbie Anderson, 100%. Let's see. Waddle, DJ Moore, Bateman, half PPR. Ideal Waddle, then Bateman, then DJ Moore probably. Debo over 3.5 receptions. Again, Daniel, sustained 15-mile-an-hour winds and light rain in this 49ers game. I could easily see him getting 4 catches, but he's probably also going to get a bunch of carries. I don't feel like super strongly about this one, and it's tough to know how much exactly the weather's going to impact that line. Brady or Cousins? Cousins is safer than Brady. Guys, Brady's really risky this week. He's really risky. The offensive line is really bad this week for the Bucs. They're missing 2 or 3 of their starting offensive linemen, and they don't have a deep offensive line group. And they're without Chris Godwin, and they're without Julio Jones. Mike Evans, Gage, and Fournette all playing, but they're all questionable too. So one of those guys could easily miss some time in this game if they re-injure anything. So yeah, I'm a little nervous for Brady. I think I would lean Cousins. Bateman or Kirk? I'm going Kirk over Bateman. I think Kirk has more target potential. I like Bateman a lot, though. I do like Bateman over 45.5 receiving yards. But guys, Christian Kirk's receiving line is 59.5. So I mean, yeah, go Christian Kirk. All right, we're heading into like the last 10 minutes of this live, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, if I didn't get your start sit question, go to the WalterPicks app. You can do infinite start sit comparisons for free in the WalterPicks app. There are some premium subscription options in the WalterPicks app that will give you boom and bust probabilities for every player in every game. Allow you to compare 3 players. Allow you to sync your league with ESPN, Yahoo, or Sleeper to the WalterPicks app. Custom to your league settings, though, even if you aren't on the premium version of the app. So definitely check it out. It is the best place to go if I didn't get to your start sit, didn't touch on some of these players that you're asking about. Trey Lance or Kirk Cousins. What's poppin'? I'm going to say poppin', Sam. Full PPR, Taysom Hill or Logan Thomas. Yeah, I'm going Taysom Hill over Logan Thomas. Is Logan Thomas playing this week? Did he play last week? I'm definitely going Taysom Hill over Logan. I haven't thought about Logan Thomas literally like in a year. I feel like I just missed a question. I'm sorry if I did. Robbie Anderson, Penny, or Michael Carter. This one's not easy. I think I just tried out Robbie. Hope he gets similar usage this week. I don't feel great about Penny or Michael. I mean, Carter's probably the safest one. If you're looking to go safe route, I do a Carter, but I think Robbie Anderson is the best play here. I'd go Dillon over Gabe Davis this week. Dillon has a pretty good shot at a touchdown still. Harris or Fournette, I'd go Fournette definitely over Damian Harris. I think that one's pretty easy. Jameis Winston playing with 4 fractures in his back today. Don't love to see that for Jameis Winston. But yeah, I mean, Taysom Hill. Maybe Taysom Hill will get some snaps at quarterback. I mean, that's not good, guys. There's no risk of further damage, and he's wearing pads to protect the area. Doesn't really sound like there would be no risk with 4 fractures in your back. But there you go. There's some news right before kickoff. Jameis Winston, 4 fractures in his back. He's playing through tremendous pain. Not great. Not great. How do you feel about CD? I'm pretty down on CD overall. I think you still have to start him though in pretty much every situation. I don't like Cooper Rush. I think Cooper Rush is probably one of the 3 worst starting quarterbacks today, and we're going to see Joe Flacco throw some passes today. Like we're going to see some Mitch Trubisky throw some passes. Like, and then it might be Cooper Rush. He might be worse than both those guys, honestly. So like it's tough to get behind CeeDee Lamb. And again, the Cowboys offense is in shambles. And guys, I'm having flashbacks, and I don't know, some of you might be too young to remember this. I'm sure some of you do remember this though. Like, I have no faith in Mike McCarthy. I think he's one of the worst coaches in the league. But just throw back to when Mike McCarthy, I think it was his last year on the Packers. I think he was fired that year or the year after when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And the Packers instantly were one of the worst teams in the league. Maybe bottom 3 team in the league that season. They won basically no games after Aaron Rodgers went down. They were like well into the playoff picture. Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and they maybe won 1 game the rest of the season. Like, that's how bad it could be for the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. Mike McCarthy is not a coach that can just, like, make up for lack of talent. So I'm very nervous for the entire Cowboys offense. But CeeDee Lamb, he's had 11 targets in week 1 still. Like, he played every single snap. He's going to see another 10-plus targets this week. So I think you still got to start CeeDee Lamb. Sam Kirk or Josh Jacobs. I like Josh Jacobs' floor, but I like Christian Kirk's ceiling a lot more. Make or break, flex, Boyd, Campbell, Dortch. I'd go Campbell. I think over Boyd and Dortch this week. Renfro, Mooney, or Curtis Samuel. I go Mooney over Renfro and Curtis Samuel. A.J. Dillon or Zeke. I'm going A.J. Dillon, 100%. Again, look, my top 10 running backs. I have A.J. Dillon at number 10 if you're watching live on the YouTube live. If you're watching live on TikTok, by the way, you should start Deandre Swift. I know I have Deandre Swift behind me as a not start, but that was before we got the update on his injury, and I think he's going to play enough to start him. Been here the entire stream, Brendan. You are a true supporter. I appreciate you, man. Start 2, Darnell Mooney, Deontay Johnson, T. Higgins, Allen Robinson. I want to start all 4 of these guys. I'm not going to lie. I think you got to start T. Higgins, though, this week, and I think I'd go Darnell Mooney 2nd, then Allen Robinson 3rd, then Deontay Johnson 4th. I'm a little nervous for Deontay against the Pats. I feel more confident in Claypool and Pickens this week for some reason against the Pats. Deontay Johnson did command more targets, though, last week. I like all 4 of those guys, though. You're really in a win-win-win-win situation there. Winston or Tua? I go Tua. Again, there's Marcus Peters is back this week. He hasn't played in over a year for the Ravens, and they're missing their next 3 best corners. So it's Marcus Peters, who hasn't played a game in a year, and then practice squad corners for the Ravens today against Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I like Tua a lot. I think Tua is a sleeper quarterback this week for sure. Pulling up the QB rankings for my boy Nate here. We are heading to the last few minutes of the live stream. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be live every single Sunday morning. I will be live every single Thursday night. And I'm also posting daily content on TikTok. I'm posting weekly content on YouTube. Check out the YouTube series I'm doing every single week. I'm posting guys who should be buying or selling in fantasy trades. I'm posting that basically every Tuesday or Wednesday morning. That's coming out on the YouTube live. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're watching live on YouTube, make sure you hit the follow button. If you're watching live on TikTok, ETN, Zeke, or Gordon, I think I would go Zeke, ETN, Gordon. Will Devin Duvernay get a lot of targets? No, he probably won't. He only had 4 targets in week 1. So what would make us think he's going to get more than 4 targets in week 2? I mean, I think this game will be a little bit more pass heavy, a little bit more high scoring, but he's not scoring 2 touchdowns again. I'm not starting Devin Duvernay, man. I'm not starting Devin Duvernay. Why bench George Kittle? He's not playing. So don't start him. I mean, it's an easy one. Everyone in this list up till Julio Jones is not playing. If you're watching live on TikTok, Godwin, Kamara, Pittman, Kittle, Jones, they're all not playing. Julio Jones not playing. I don't think Kittle's officially been ruled out there, so maybe that's like an unofficial not playing. But it does sound like all the reports are that he's probably going to play. Okay. Russell Gage or Myers. I like Gage a lot. I think Gage is a really good deep play. There's no Chris Godwin. There's no Julio Jones. Henderson or Hollywood Brown. Yeah, we got this one earlier, Ronan. I think Hollywood Brown is the guy you have to play because the ceiling is so high. But Henderson's floor is definitely pretty good against the Falcons. 10-point favorites against the Falcons. So, Ronan, with these types of questions in general, too, with the running backs have safer floors. Their touches are more locked in than the receivers' targets are. So, ask yourself, do you want to go with the floor? Go with Henderson. Do you want to lock in at least 10 points? Go with Henderson. Do you want to shoot for 30-plus points? Go with Hollywood Brown. I'm not saying Henderson doesn't have that upside too, but I don't think he reaches the same ceiling potential as Hollywood Brown. So that's really the thought process there. Personally, I like taking risks that have high rewards. And so I would go with Hollywood Brown, especially if it's a PPR league. But Henderson's really safe, guys. How are we doing? Oh, wait, I got to pull this one up. Wade, how are we doing, Walter? Rex Burkhead, Curtis Samuel, or Kenyon Drake for flex. Wade, man, classic mistake. Don't worry about it. My name's actually Sam. Walter is the AI algorithm that helps power the WalterPicks app, which I've helped build over the last 3 years. Classic mistake. Don't worry about it. We got Rex Burkhead, Curtis Samuel, or Kenyon Drake for flex. I think it's Curtis Samuel. I think you could make an argument for Rex Burkhead. Again, I don't think I've told a single person today to start Kenyon Drake. If Kenyon Drake doesn't score a touchdown, he's going under 6 fantasy points. So there's such a low floor and really not that high of a ceiling for Kenyon Drake in a game that I think the Dolphins will put up a lot of points too, which could mean more passing for the Ravens. Again, Lamar's always there to steal the goal line carries too. I think Curtis Samuel is your best bet here, then Rex Burkhead, then Kenyon Drake. Thanks so much for tuning in, Wade, and don't worry about calling me Walter. Sam, I need to know, Miles Sanders or Josh Jacobs? Dave, I'd go Josh Jacobs over Miles Sanders this week. Stevenson, Jamal Williams, or ETN. This one's not easy, man. I'm starting Stevenson in one league. I'm starting him over Rashad Penny, though. I don't think in a PPR league I'd start him over ETN. I think I would start him over Jamal Williams, but it's really close. Obviously, the how much Swift plays will have a big impact on that one. But yeah, I think I would go ETN in a PPR league. If it's not PPR, I think I'd go Stevenson. Again, that's why it's good to know the scoring settings when you do ask these questions. Higgins or Chubb, you're not allowed to bench Nick Chubb this week against the Jets. Definitely don't bench Nick Chubb. Ingram or ETN? Yeah, I'm benching Ingram. I'm starting ETN. Almost game time, Sam. Pick one. Melvin Gordon, Bateman, Damian Harris, Mark Ingram. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks, man. I'd go Bateman, especially if this is PPR. Definitely Bateman. Again, my favorite prop of the day is Bateman, over 45.5 receiving yards. You can find that line over on Prize Picks. He had over this last week, he only had 2 catches, and his average depth of the target was over 20 yards down the field. Like, he's seeing very deep targets. This is why I was in on Bateman this season to begin with, because we saw this with Marquise Brown last season too. And again, I think the Dolphins could score a lot of points this week. That's going to be good for Bateman. I think Bateman has a really high ceiling. I'm starting certain players over him. Like, I think Christian Kirk can be started over Bateman. I think Darnell Mooney can be started over Bateman. But yeah, I think Bateman's ceiling is really, really, really high this week against the Dolphins. Dillon or CD? Yeah, I'm not benching CD. I'm not benching AJ Dillon this week. AJ Dillon was the number 9 running back in PPR leagues last week, and the Packers only scored 7 points. Please help pick 2, Terry McScorin, Brandon Cooks, or Cortland Sutton. Yeah, I'm not benching Brandon Cooks. Again, he was the number 3 in air yards in week 1. He ran around every single Davis Mills drop back. So it's between McScorin and Cortland Sutton. I lean Sutton, I think, over McScorin, but it's close. It's definitely close. And McScorin didn't have a great week 1, but I do expect him to bounce back. Sam, thank you. Drop Julio Jones or Mark Cooper for Curtis Samuel. I think I dropped Julio before Amari. And the reason for this, like, I don't feel great about either of them. I think Julio Jones looked pretty good in week 1, but guys, we've seen this story so many times now over the last few years with Julio. These lingering injuries are very tough for him to recover from. And we know these teams are going to be really cautious with Julio because he's old and he's had a lot of lingering injuries in his career. So yeah, I think I would I think I would go with Amari over Julio on your roster. I've been watching the whole stream. Thanks, man. Connor or Swift? Yeah, I'd go James Conner, I think, over DeAndre Swift. And again, DeAndre Swift, he does have an ankle injury. I think this Cardinals-Raiders game could be one of the highest scoring, if not the highest scoring game of the week. So I'm okay going Conner over Swift. But in a fully healthy scenario, I'm definitely going Swift over Conner. Waddle, Cooks, Hurst, Taysom. Yeah, I'm going Taysom, honestly, over Hurst. We got this James Winston playing with 4 fractures in his back. We got Alvin Kamara out. I mean, a lot of stars lining, honestly, for Taysom Hill. Waddle versus Cooks is not an easy one for me. The line for Jalen Waddle's receiving 57.5. The line for Cooks receiving, I don't think it's posted here. It's kind of weird. But it is 62.5. So yeah, they have Cooks ahead of Waddle here too. I'm okay going with Cooks over Waddle as well. I'm really high on Cooks. What's good? Samuel. What's going on, Lance? Scary Terry, Waddle, Sutton, Christian Kirk. Start 1. Yeah, again. I really like all 4 of these guys. It's a really tough one. I'm okay going Waddle or Kirk. I think I'll go Waddle or Kirk in this one. Again, I'm okay benching Terry McScorin this week. I won't be shocked if he's a big bounce back week, but I feel better about the weeks we just saw from Waddle and Christian Kirk than I do from Terry and Sutton. All 4 of those guys, they're really good options. That's not an easy question. Bateman or Lazard? I would go Bateman over Lazard. Let's see Lazard do it. Again, I like Bateman a lot this week against the Dolphins. Guys, that's my time. Second live, Sunday morning live, wrapped up for the day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I tried to get as many start sits in as I could, but if I didn't get your start sit question, go to the WalterPicks app. You can do infinite start sit comparisons there. And it will be also custom to your league scoring settings, which a lot of times I'm not able to do if it's not included in the question. I will do this last one, though, for Dillon, Lockett, James Robinson, or Mondre. I won't be shocked if this is a Mondre week. We see Ty Montgomery's out this week. And Ty Montgomery actually had some run in week 1. He was really involved, honestly, in week 1. He played 34% of the snaps. He had 10 fantasy points. He did score a touchdown. He had 4 targets, too. 6 touches, 4 targets. All of that could go to Mondre. And maybe some of it will go to Damian Harris too. But I think that's a really positive thing for Mondre Stevenson that no one's really talking about. So I think I would go Mondre. James Robinson, though, is definitely in contention here too. I don't think I'd play Lockett. New sub. Thanks, man. Yeah, tight end rankings. Let me pull up the tight end rankings before I wrap up the stream. And again, I do really appreciate hitting that subscribe button if you're watching live on YouTube, hitting the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok, because I'll be live every Sunday morning, every Thursday night, and I'll post weekly, daily content on both YouTube and TikTok. I really do appreciate the support, guys. Guys, time, it's the most valuable thing we have. Thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. Good luck this week. Have a fantastic week too. Enjoy the football on our TV screens this week, guys. I'll be back live Thursday night. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.